After 20 years of a sexless marriage, I was reborn. When I returned to this life, I was brewing a virility tonic, planning my 99th attempt to seduce Chen Yuan in the first year of our marriage. We never consummated it in my past life. It was only because of this chicken soup laced with horny goat weed that we shared a single night of passion. After his adopted sister learned I was pregnant, she fell gravely ill. And Chen Yuan never touched me again. This time, I didn't hesitate to throw out that bowl of soup, choosing to step aside for the sake of their sibling bond. My blurred vision slowly sharpened, and the calendar on the wall confirmed I had gone back to 1980. The excruciating pain from every limb and bone during the fall seemed to linger, and my body wouldn't stop trembling. Before my rebirth, it was the 20th wedding anniversary for me and Chen Yuan. Chen Wanwan gave me a spa gift card, telling me to go treat myself because the spa had a power outage in the middle of my session. I returned home early. I pushed the door open to find two naked bodies entwined, a sight that made my blood boil. Faced with my rage and fury, Chen Wanwan dressed herself unhurriedly, shooting me a cold, sidelong glance. All these years, my brother only stayed with you out of pity. What right do you have to make a scene? If you hadn't drugged his soup back then, he would never have touched you, not even once. So what if you schemed to get pregnant? My brother still slipped you the abortion pill. All that hope for nothing. All these years, I thought the miscarriage was an accident. I even blamed my own weak body. So, it was Chen Yuan. He's the one who killed my child with his own hands. I grabbed Chen Yuan, screaming my accusations like a madwoman, only to tumble down the stairs in the chaos of our struggle. My head slammed hard against the floor, warm blood gushed out, and in the searing pain, I slowly lost consciousness. My last memory was of Chen Yuan holding Chen Wanwan, their faces growing blurry as they stood at the top of the stairs. Footsteps outside the door snapped me out of my reverie. Chen Yuan and Chen Wanwan returned, chatting and laughing. Something smells amazing. Jiang Lan, did you make soup? Chen Yuan set down the bags he was carrying, helped Chen Wanwan settle onto the sofa, and then turned to ask me. I steadied myself and replied calmly, no, it must be a scent drifting over from the neighbors. A whole assortment of nutritional supplements was spread across the table. I picked them up one by one, looking them over, and asked a question I already knew the answer to. Are these for me? For when we tried to conceive. As the words hung in the air, Chen Wanwan's face drained of color. Chen Yuan stiffened, took the beautifully packaged royal jelly from my hands, and said in a clipped tone, this is to help Wanwan build up her strength. We're still young. There's no rush about having a child. I just smiled and turned to walk into the kitchen. The aroma of chicken soup, simmering with epimedium, filled the kitchen. A year into our marriage, no matter how I tried to seduce him, Chen Yuan never laid a hand on me. There were times I had him breathless and on the brink, yet he would still clench his jaw, get up, and say he was too tired, that we could talk about it later. Aunt Wang from across the hall asked me several times why we didn't have children yet. Blushing, I told her we hadn't consummated the marriage. Concerned Aunt Wang, thinking Chen Yuan had a health issue, found some horny goat weed for me, insisting it would definitely work if stewed in chicken soup. In my past life, on this very night, under the influence of that soup, Chen Yuan and I consummated our marriage, and I became pregnant as a result. Because of this, Chen Wanwan was emotionally traumatized, her heart condition worsened, and she fell seriously ill. For the remaining 20 years of our marriage, Chen Yuan never touched me again. He told me he had a private medical condition and asked me not to hold it against him. I chose to be understanding and accepted a sexless marriage. It wasn't until the very end that I discovered they had been having an affair all along. I, his wife, was merely a front to conceal their illicit relationship. Cheerful laughter from Chen Yuan and Chen Wanwan drifted in from the living room. I let out a silent, cold laugh, picked up the bowl of chicken soup, and flung it violently into the sink. After dinner, Chen Yuan walked into the kitchen holding a bottle of raw milk. I'll make some warm milk for Wanwan. Could you go give her a foot and leg massage? We walked a lot today, and her legs seem a bit swollen. Instead of agreeing readily as I usually would, I asked him calmly, did you marry me just so I could wait on your sister? Chen Yuan stopped in his tracks and frowned, displeased. If you don't want to do it, then don't. Why would you say such a thing? Who's been gossiping in your ear again? I already know the answer in my heart, so I won't argue. I promised Auntie Wang I'd tailor a dress for her to wear to her family visit tomorrow, so I have to work on it tonight. You go ahead and give her the massage. In the living room, Chen Wanwan, fresh from her bath, wore only a loose nightgown. Chen Yuan held her fair, plump calf, gently kneading it. The two whispered intimately, their gazes meeting with a tenderness so palpable it could have spun silk. In my past life, after I became pregnant, Chen Wanwan fell seriously ill and spent her days weeping. At the time, I also thought her behavior was very strange, but Chen Yuan explained that he and his sister had relied on each other since childhood. Wanwan was a sensitive soul, afraid her brother would stop doting on her once he had a child of his own. Chen Wanwan never married, claiming she had a heart condition and didn't want to burden anyone. Once, when someone asked me to set her up on a date, Chen Yuan flew into a rage, accusing me, as her sister-in-law, of being unable to tolerate even a sickly sister-in-law. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was, blindly turning a blind eye for a full 20 years. I let out a self-deprecating chuckle and turned to head for the storage room where I usually did my sewing. By the time I finished and came out, Chen Wanwan had already gone back to her own room to rest. Only the dim desk lamp was on in the bedroom, and the bathroom door was slightly ajar, letting the sound of running water from the shower drift out. I couldn't help but glance inside. In the steam-filled room, Chen Yuan stood with his back to me, one hand braced against the wall, the other moving in front of him. Suddenly, a stifled groan escaped his throat, followed by a sigh so faint it was almost inaudible. Wanwan, my sweet girl. 3. I bit the inside of my cheek until it bled, filling my mouth with the taste of iron. Scenes from the past, where I had tried so hard to seduce Chen Yuan, flashed through my mind one by one. I secretly bought perfume, furtively applied lipstick, and tried to wear pretty, low-cut dresses like the movie stars in the posters, yet each time, all I received in return was Chen Yuan's annoyance and humiliation. He would always push me away in irritation, his cold gaze making me feel like a piece of trash. Jiang Lan, is that all you ever think about? Such vulgar matters. I have many important things to think about every day. Stop bothering me all the time. I was always overwhelmed with shame, feeling utterly humiliated as a highly educated intellectual and the factory director. His mind was always occupied with serious matters. He likely had no interest in such trivial affairs, but it turned out he wasn't without desire. He simply didn't want to touch me. He married me, yet he remained chaste for a love that couldn't see the light of day. It's fine. In this lifetime, I'll step aside for you too. The sound of running water stopped. I quietly turned around and went back to the storage room. The next day, for the first time ever, I didn't get up early to make breakfast. When I got up, Chen Yuan had already left for the factory, and Chen Wanwan was lounging on the sofa reading a book. On the dining table, the half-eaten steamed buns and soy milk they'd had were left in a messy pile. Chen Wanwan shot me a glance and said with a sarcastic tone, "Sister-in-law, you're getting more and more delicate, aren't you? Can't even be bothered to make breakfast now." Unfazed, I rubbed my waist and chuckled lightly. "It's all your brother's fault. He wore me out last night." Mid-sentence, I suddenly stopped, covering my mouth. "Oh my, why am I telling you this?" Chen Wanwan's face instantly fell. "My brother, what did he do to you? That's not for a young lady to pry into. I'm going out to take care of something. Figure out your own lunch." Chen Wanwan's expression grew increasingly rigid, and I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. "Anyway, I've made up my mind to get a divorce. Might as well make things difficult for them. No one's going to have an easy time of it." For I went to the municipal technical school 6 months ago. Principal Wu Jia saw the embroidered qipao I made on someone else, tracked me down to my home, and asked me to be the embroidery teacher. Chen Yuan was adamant about not letting me go. "I'm so busy, and Wanwan isn't in good health either. Someone needs to be home to take care of things. Isn't the allowance I give you every month enough? Don't go through all that trouble for a pittance. You only graduated from middle school yourself. What makes you think you can be a teacher? Don't go out and make a fool of yourself." I wasn't very competent to begin with, and as cold water completely doused my courage, reluctantly, I turned down Principal Wu's offer. It wasn't until I was on my deathbed that I realized I had given them, brother and sister, 20 years of my genuine devotion, yet in their eyes, I was nothing but a pathetic fool, only fit to wait on them at home. The past is too painful to dwell on. This time, I will seize this opportunity. I gritted my teeth and pedaled the bicycle like the wind. Principal Wu informed me that our school will soon be heading to the capital to participate in a traditional clothing design competition. I promised her I would create an embroidered qipao to represent the school in the contest. We spent the whole day working and have tentatively selected the fabric for the qipao and the theme for the embroidery. When I returned home in the evening, Chen Wanwan had a dark look on her face and couldn't wait to speak. As soon as she saw me, "Explain what you meant this morning. What exactly did you and my brother do last night? Has she been stewing over this all day?" I said frankly. "What do you think a young married couple does when they share a bed anyway? As the aunt, you just need to be ready with the red envelope for your little nephew." Chen Wanwan's eyes were red, and her whole body trembled. "You're lying to me. Chen Yuan would never touch you. He promised me." She covered her mouth, her eyes filled with panic. "So I finally got under your skin and you can't keep up the act." I gave a slight, wry smile. "So that's what Chen Yuan said. Well, you can take it as the truth then." I was heading to the storage room to work on the blueprints when Chen Wanwan grabbed my arm. "Stop right there. You need to explain yourself." The paper parcel tucked under my arm fell to the ground, and a piece of red silk slipped out. Chen Wanwan's eyes widened. Where did you get the money for such expensive fabric? Did my brother give it to you, just because of what happened between you two yesterday? She slapped me hard across the face, then stomped on the fabric furiously. How dare you? How could you? She hit me so hard I saw stars. Before I could even process it, several muddy footprints were already stamped on the precious fabric. Furious and frantic, I shoved her away with all my strength. Chen Yuan happened to walk in at that moment, seeing the scene. He barked sharply, Jian Lan, what do you think you're doing? I picked up the fabric, brushing off the dust with a pang of heartache. Chen Wanwan lay on the ground, wailing pitifully. Brother, it hurts so much. I think my little finger is broken. Chen Yuan examined her finger, his face paling with distress. He scooped her up and hurried out the door. 5. It was late into the night when I finally managed to clean the stains off the fabric, collapsing onto the workbench in an exhausted daze. In my groggy state, I felt someone approach and gently take hold of my arm. I jolted awake. It was Chen Yuan. His brow was furrowed, his tone laced with a suppressed, threatening edge. Was it this hand that pushed Wanwan? The hand gripping my wrist was like a vice, impossible to break free from. A sudden fear washed over me, and I couldn't help but retort, why don't you ask what she did? Chen Yuan sneered coldly. As my sister, Chen Yuan's sister, she can do whatever she pleases. If she wants to hit you, you stand there and take it. Who gave you permission to fight back? I'll ask you one more time, was it this hand? My heart felt as if it had been pierced by a sharp blade. In our past life, we were married for 20 years, he was impeccable in every way, gentle and considerate towards me, except for the absence of intimacy. So, I always believed he held some affection for me, but it turns out he never gave me a hard time simply because I was obedient and took meticulous care of him and Chen Wanwan. Now, all I did was give Chen Wanwan a little shove, and he revealed this terrifying side of himself. In the dim light, I saw an expression on Chen Yuan's face I had never seen before. It was grim, ruthless, and brimming with unrestrained ferocity. Every hair on my body stood on end. Terrified, I tried to pull away. Chen Yuan leaned in close, his voice so chilling it made my blood run cold. Wanwan's little finger is broken. I want you to pay her back with an arm. He raised the heavy steel pipe and swung it down hard, aiming for my arm. An excruciating pain shot through me, and I let out a blood-curdling scream. Chen Yuan showed no emotion. He threw the pipe to the ground, delivered a final warning, and walked out. Remember this lesson, never upset Wanwan again. 6. Drenched in cold sweat, I asked Aunt Wang from across the way for help. Her son gave me a ride on his bike to the hospital to get my broken bone set. The next day, I went to the police station to file a report, gritting my teeth through the pain. Chen Yuan arrived quickly, his face a picture of sincerity as he hurriedly apologized. Officers, I'm so sorry for the trouble. He kept insisting it was an accident, that I was just accidentally hurt during a marital squabble that got physical. Then, with a pained look on his face, he took my hand. Xiao Lan, I know you've been wronged. It's my fault for putting you through this, but I really didn't mean to do it. How could you lie to the police and say I hit you? They're so busy. Let's not cause any more trouble. He's a well-known, respected entrepreneur in this city with a spotless reputation. No one would ever believe he deliberately broke my arm. The officer politely reminded him to be more careful in the future, and then turned to advise me. It's only natural for a young couple to have arguments and bicker sometimes. You can't call the police and talk about divorce over every little fight. I was frantic and furious, but Chen Yuan just wore an expression of infinite patience. Look at you, getting all worked up with the officers. Come on, let's get back to the hospital. Your arm is still injured. With a look of helpless indulgence, Chen Yuan put his arm around me and led me away. Once we were alone, his expression instantly turned cold as he said sharply, it was just a little punishment. What's all this talk about divorce? Wanwan is still waiting for me at home. You should head back to the hospital on your own. I stayed in the hospital for 5 days, and neither Chen Yuan nor Chen Wanwan showed up once. Principal Wu came to visit me at the hospital. The doctor said it would take at least 3 months to get my cast removed. There's no way I'll make it in time for the fashion design competition. Principal Wu comforted me, saying, Xiao Jiang, don't be too upset, focus on recovering first. There will be other opportunities in the future. Despair washed over me, and I bit back my tears. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital and went home. As soon as I entered the courtyard, a few neighbors pointed at me and whispered among themselves, she married so far above her station, yet she's still not satisfied. She even had the nerve to hit her sister-in-law, a vulgar woman from the countryside, uneducated and utterly lacking in class. It's been a year since the wedding, and still no sign of a baby. How did Director Chen have such rotten luck marrying her? I walked past with my head down, teeth clenched. Back home, Chen Wanwan was lounging on the sofa, eating fruit. Seeing my sorry state with the cast, She didn't even try to hide her smug satisfaction. Back so soon, I thought you'd fled the scene of the crime. Chin Yuan emerged from the kitchen, his tone laced with resignation. Wan, what did I tell you? Her arm is broken, let's just drop it and never bring it up again. He turned to me, his gaze sweeping over my arm in a cast before he frowned. Can you still use your left hand? Wan needs to build up her strength. I made some bone broth, but the flavor seems off. You should make it. He said it so matter-of-factly, as if it were nothing. It was as if my broken arm had nothing to do with him. I clenched my left fist, forced a smile, and said, okay. In the kitchen, a pot of bone broth bubbled and simmered. I took a paper packet from the cupboard. Inside was the epimedium Auntie Wang had given me last time. Light-hearted, flirtatious laughter drifted in from the living room, courtesy of Chen Yuan and Chen Wan. I gave a cold smirk and poured the entire packet of horny goat weed into the soup pot. 7. Perhaps it was because I had been in the hospital these past few days, leaving no extra, bothersome people at home. Chen Wan was in exceptionally high spirits. After drinking 2 large bowls of hot soup, a fine sheen of sweat glistened on her forehead, making her already lovely face appear even more radiant and captivating. Chen Yuan's gaze was practically glued to her face. I refilled his bowl with soup, offering an ingratiating smile. Chen Yuan, you should have some more too. I simmered it for a long time. Chen Yuan shot me a glance, snorted through his nose, and picked up the bowl as if bestowing a favor. After the meal, I quietly poured out the leftover soup and rinsed the pot several times. In the living room, Chen Wan irritably tossed off her jacket, wearing only a tight tank top. It's only May, how can it be this hot? Chen Yuan found a fan and considerately began fanning her. I made an excuse that I needed to go to the hospital to complete the discharge procedures. Chen Yuan nodded, go ahead, come back early to make dinner. I waited quietly in the hallway. In my past life, after Chen Yuan drank the soup, he couldn't hold himself back. After about half an hour, figuring the timing was about right, I knocked on Auntie Wang's door. Through my sobs, I said I wanted to apologize to Chen Yuan and his sister, and have everyone bear witness that if Chen Wan ever hits me again, I promise I won't fight back. Auntie Wang was indignant. She threw the first punch. And now you have to promise not to retaliate. With tears welling in my eyes, I said, Auntie, Chen Yuan has been so angry he hasn't visited me in the hospital for 5 days. I'm really scared. Auntie Wang didn't hesitate for a second and took me to find people one by one. When the old aunties heard it was to mediate a family dispute, they even skipped their meal. A whole procession of people followed closely behind me. I took a deep breath, steadied my hand, and opened the door. Clothes were strewn haphazardly across the living room floor. The bedroom door was ajar, from which the impassioned sounds of a man and a woman could be heard. Brother, oh, brother, be gentle. Wan, my sweet, am I dreaming? The aunties, being women of experience, instantly exchanged knowing glances. 8. The two in the room, lost in their reckless passion, were completely unaware that someone had arrived. It wasn't until several old aunties rushed to the bedside that Chen Wan's face twisted in terror, as if she'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. The piercing shriek nearly pierced my eardrums. Chen Yuan leapt from the bed stark naked. The gazes of several aunties instantly converged on a certain part of his body, eliciting gasps of astonishment. Flustered, Chen Yuan turned around, wrapped Chen Wan in the blanket, and snatched a pillowcase to cover his waist. Jiang Lan, who said you could just bring people home like that? He shouted at me in furious embarrassment. I stumbled back 2 steps, covering my face with a sob in my voice. Chen Yuan, what are you doing? She's your sister, an auntie shouted at the top of her lungs. Well, I've seen it all now. Incest between siblings. In the old days, they'd be drowned in a pig cage for this. Chen Wan shrieked. That's a lie. We're not blood-related siblings. Auntie Wang scolded. So just because you're not blood-related, you think it's okay to fool around? Look up. Your brother and sister-in-law's wedding photo is hanging right in front of you. The crowd erupted in a clamor of voices. I know, right? It's true what they say. You can't judge a book by its cover. Factory Director Chen always seemed so refined, but to think he'd be carrying on with his own sister. No wonder she refused to meet any suitors, no matter how good their prospects were. She was already hung up on her brother. I sobbed, my whole body trembling as I collapsed to the floor, muttering under my breath. So that's why he hit me. That's why he never touched me once in the whole year we've been married. The aunties looked at Chen Yuan with utter contempt in their eyes. Then, sizing up Chen Wan, they clicked their tongues and said, look at that vixen's appearance. Her brothers probably drained her dry already. What makes you think there's anything left for you? I bet they've been at it since they were kids. It's absolutely revolting. Chen Wan rolled her eyes back and collapsed. Whether she had genuinely fainted or was faking it was unclear. Chen Yuan was utterly terrified, screaming Chen Wan's name at the top of his lungs. At that moment, he cast all shame aside, leapt naked from the bed, and frantically grabbed a lamp to hurl it. "Get out, all of you, get out." The aunties were scattered in disarray, cursing and shouting as they scrambled back. 9. Chen Wanwan was spirited away by Qin Yuan under cover of night, hidden away to an unknown location. As the factory director, Qin Yuan couldn't leave. Swallowing his pride, he went to work as usual, and to avoid the old aunties, he moved into his office. The aunties came by in turns every day to console me, and while they were at it, they'd probe to see if I'd noticed anything unusual over the past year. Each of them dredged up odd snippets from the past about how the Chen siblings interacted, and their speculations grew wilder by the minute. I just shook my head, offering neither explanation nor denial. I brought up divorce again, but Chen Yuan refused and had the factory send someone to mediate. He stubbornly insisted that he was drunk that day, mistook me for someone else, and that I had returned with others just as he was, taking his clothes off, so nothing serious had actually happened. He also claims our relationship isn't broken and refuses to get a divorce. I don't understand why, at this point, he still won't agree to a divorce. After thinking it over, I think I'm starting to get it. Marrying his adopted sister, who's on the same household register, is ultimately not a good look. A flawless marriage is the foundation for a smooth political career. I was a country girl with no family or connections, and I was completely devoted to him. He couldn't have found an easier person to control. No wonder, in our past life, he preferred to carry on a 20-year affair with Chen Wanwan rather than ever mention divorce. He exploited me to the fullest. He told everyone that my miscarriage had left me infertile, all while putting on a show of deep affection to build his public image. He's got it all: fame, fortune, a thriving career, and love. But why should I be the one to sacrifice my entire life? I tearfully poured out my heart to the mediators. We've been married for a year, and he has never once touched me. I thought he might have a physical issue, but that day, even the aunties saw, he's perfectly capable. The aunties immediately vouched for me. Absolutely, we saw it perfectly clearly. There's nothing wrong with Director Chen. Down there, the mediator looked embarrassed. In this past year, you two really haven't, you know. Aunt Wang slapped her thigh. Is there any doubt? Poor girl was too shy to say it herself. I had to pry it out of her. The mediation failed, and Chen Yuan finally came back to talk to me face to face. Gone was his usual air of superiority as he said in a low voice, "Wanwan is my sister. There's no way we could be together. I was just drunk that day and mistook her for you. Don't take it to heart. Let's just move on and make things work. The way you went from arrogance to groveling is laughable." I couldn't be bothered to play along, so I laid my cards on the table. Chen Yuan, do you really think everyone in this world is a fool except for you? You think you can fool everyone by putting on an act about the time you broke my arm with a steel pipe? I produced my medical records and the x-rays the hospital took that same day. I had the injuries from the steel pipe assessed. The doctor can confirm I'm not lying. A collision with a cabinet simply couldn't cause this kind of damage. You're just using me as a cover, a convenient smokescreen for your affair with Chen Wanwan that won't jeopardize your promotion. If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll make sure the whole world knows you abuse your wife and are having an affair with your adopted sister. Just think about what it is you really want. 10. Half a month later, Qin Yuan agreed to a divorce by mutual agreement. I didn't ask for anything else, just the old house in the Chen family's factory compound. In a few years, this place will skyrocket in value when it gets demolished. It'd be a waste not to take it. Chen Wanwan, who had been missing, has returned. Her face looked weary, but her eyes were bright. She paid no mind to the neighbors' gossip, holding her head high with pride. The look she gave me was still filled with superiority. Jiang Lan, I really must thank you. If it weren't for your little scene, my brother wouldn't have dared to admit his feelings. I confessed to him before you two got married, but he wouldn't accept me. Held back by society's judgment, he was the one who said he had to take responsibility and couldn't get a divorce. Now you're the one insisting on it. Don't you dare regret this later. The aunties called her a shameless homewrecker. She stiffened her neck defiantly. What do you bunch of Philistines know? Why should true love bow down to a piece of paper? I sneered inwardly. Some true love. Could she really believe that Chen Yuan didn't marry her because of societal pressure, or even out of some sense of responsibility to me? In fact, the only reason Chen Yuan agreed to the divorce after 2 weeks was because I sent a formal complaint to the head office. I reported him for domestic violence and marital infidelity. The investigation team sent by the head office has already interviewed me. Qin Yuan is likely to be dismissed from his position. He agreed to the divorce because he had no more prospects for advancement within the system. I heard he's planning to head south to work in the private sector. Before Qin Yuan left for good, he came back one more time. He lingered at the doorway for a long while, his eyes slightly reddened, and said, Jiang Lan, I know you don't believe me, but I truly wanted to spend my whole life with you. I lifted my arm in its cast and said coldly, please don't, Director Chen, I only have 2 arms. I can't bear the weight of your lifetime. Qin Yuan's face flushed red, and he stammered, Wan has a heart condition, she mustn't get upset. That day, I just wanted to teach you a lesson. I cut him off. Director Chen. The house has been transferred. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Even if we run into each other on the street, don't bother saying hello, goodbye and good riddance. I slammed the door shut, then slid down the wall and sat on the floor, silent tears streaming down my face. Ever since I came back to this life, it was only at this moment that I finally let out a sigh of relief. 11. I didn't waste a single day. I signed the contract with the technical school and took up the post of embroidery teacher. My grandmother was once a famous embroideress in the Jiangnan region, a master of Suzhou embroidery, but later, the spirit of the times changed. The streets were filled with people in blue, black, and gray cadre suits. Grandma closed her tailor shop, and her skills were left with no place to shine. But ever since I was a child, I loved cutting cloth and embroidery, always pestering Grandma to teach me. Over time, I managed to learn about 70 or 80% of her craft. After the 1980s, people's love for beauty reawakened, and clothing of all styles blossomed in a vibrant display. The skills Grandma passed down to me finally saw the light of day again. Principal Wu Jia was still thinking about the competition and asked me if I had any finished embroidered garments ready. That's when I remembered. Back when I got married, I had made myself a Ming-style wedding dress. The entire dress was covered in embroidery. I worked on it every night until midnight, stitching away for a full 3 months. When I showed it to Qin Yuan, overjoyed, he just sneered, called it tacky, and forbade me from wearing it on my wedding day. I had no choice but to wear the red suit Qin Yuan had prepared, with its oversized shoulder pads and stiff tailoring. It made me look utterly ridiculous and became the butt of everyone's jokes. But now, Principal Wu and several teachers were instantly captivated by my wedding dress, showering it with endless praise. 1 month later, at the competition venue in the capital, the model, wearing the Ming-style wedding dress I had crafted by hand, complete with a phoenix crown and embroidered cape, made her graceful entrance onto the stage. The ceremonial robe flowed like a brilliant ribbon, its color reminiscent of the evening glow, exquisitely embroidered rare birds intertwined with winding floral vines, while colored silk threads and gold filigree shimmered in dazzling harmony. The entire audience was captivated, their applause unceasing. Tears, unbidden, welled up and streamed down. With a maiden's heart, I had devotedly stitched this wedding gown, one needle and one thread at a time, over nearly 100 nights, for no other reason. It was all for Qin Yuan. I have neither a proper education nor a decent job, not even a dowry to my name on my wedding day. I want to wear an exquisite gown, to show everyone that the wife Qin Yuan is marrying is not worthless. At the very least, I possess the fine skill of tailoring and embroidery. I didn't want Qin Yuan to lose face. My sincere devotion was met with heartless betrayal. Yet now, the time and heart I poured into this wedding dress has come back to me in a different form. 2 years later, I resigned from the technical school and founded Milan Apparel. In the following years, my business flourished, and I became a well-known female entrepreneur in Nanjing. Seeing that I was still single, Principal Wu set me up on a blind date, insisting repeatedly that I had to meet the person. For some reason, people are always so prejudiced. No matter how successful a woman is, if she hasn't married and had children, her life is ultimately seen as incomplete. Even if I appear radiant and full of joy every day, people can't help but sigh with a touch of pity amidst their admiration. Director Jiang is beautiful and capable. It's just a shame her romantic luck hasn't been great. I have no intention of remarrying, but I didn't explain this to Principal Wu. She is my mentor and benefactor, a teacher and a friend. I know she means well. Under her urging, I agreed to meet him, if only to make a new friend. It might even be a useful connection. The man I was set up with is named Shen Shi. He's a university professor, 4 years older than me, and has been divorced for 3 years. Shen Shi teaches classical Chinese. He possesses the gentle, refined demeanor of a true gentleman, handsome in appearance and elegant in his bearing. He has a wonderful personality and is quite talkative. Over the course of the meal, we chatted about everything under the sun, making for a relaxed and pleasant time. When we left the hotel, I waited at the entrance while Shenxi went to the parking lot to get the car. A figure emerged from behind a pillar and slowly approached me. I looked up. It was Qin Yuan, whom I hadn't seen in years. He had grown noticeably thinner, his overly large suit hanging loosely on his frame, betraying a hint of unease. He was only in his mid-30s, yet his hair was already half gray, with no trace left of his former spirited and confident self. Qin Yuan forced a smile and spoke with difficulty. Jiang Lan, all these years, how have you been? I nodded, my tone calm. I'm doing well, and you? He faltered, mumbling, I'm all right too. I didn't speak, just looked at him quietly. Qin Yuan also fell silent until Shenxi drove around the corner, rolled down the window, and called out to me. I said politely, "My friend is waiting for me. I should get going." Jianglan, I turned around. Qin Yuan's face was entirely in the shadow of the corridor pillar, his expression impossible to make out. "I had a very long dream. In it, we were husband and wife for 20 years, but he took 2 steps forward, his voice thick with bitterness. I could have had my own children, and a chance to grow old with you. All of that was real, wasn't it?" Shenxi stopped the car, got out, and opened the passenger door for me. Qin Yuan looked at Shenxi. The light in his eyes instantly extinguished, leaving only profound dejection on his face. I didn't answer his question, turning to get in the car behind me. Qin Yuan called my name again. "Jianglan, I'm sorry." I turned my head. "Qin Yuan, your apology is worthless, and I don't need it anyway." 13. The atmosphere was a bit awkward on the way back as Shenxi drove me home. After a moment's thought, I decided to explain that was my ex-husband. "I assume Sister Wu has already told you about my previous marriage." Shenxi smiled and said something, but I didn't pay it much mind. As we said goodbye, Shenxi asked gently, "Will I see you this weekend?" The night breeze was heavy with the sweet scent of osmanthus, petals fell like a fine rain, and I held out my hand to catch a single pale yellow blossom. "I'm going on a business trip next week. The company is planning to open a new factory in the Northwest to support the local economy, so my focus will likely be there for the next 2 years." I smiled. "If you ever come to the Northwest, I'll treat you to some local delicacies." Catching the hint, Shenxi shrugged and gave a helpless smile, his voice still gentle. "It's a deal then. You can't delete me. Just think of me as another friend you get along with." My smile broadened. "Of course, I'll be counting on your guidance in the future, Professor Shen." 14. I never saw Qin Yuan or Qin Wanwan again after that. The next time I heard their names was in a news report on a legal affairs program. Qin Wanwan got involved with Qin Yuan's business partner. The two of them conspired to frame Qin Yuan, leaving him saddled with massive debt. Qin Yuan tied the 2 men up in an abandoned factory. After torturing them all night, he pushed them off the building. Immediately after, he jumped to his own death. An elderly scavenger who witnessed his jump said he had been sitting there for a long time before he leapt. One can only wonder what was going through Qin Yuan's mind as he sat on that rooftop. One day not long after, the secretary brought in a letter with no sender's name. Upon opening the envelope, a small 2-inch photograph slipped out. In the photo, 2 young people stood shoulder to shoulder. The girl, her hair in 2 braids, wore a shy smile as she tilted her head to lean against the man beside her. The handsome man's face was tense, his head slightly turned away. That was the only photo of me and Qin Yuan, taken when we got our marriage certificate. In one corner of the photo, the mark of an official seal was still visible. It must have been torn from the marriage certificate. After all these years, it hadn't faded at all and was still in perfect condition. I gave a faint smile, tore the photo to pieces, and tossed it into the trash can. 15. Extra chapter, 2 lifetimes. Jiang Lan tumbled down the stairs with a piercing scream, while Qin Yuan stood frozen in terror, unable to move a muscle. Qin Wanwan let out a shriek and threw herself into his arms. Qin Yuan instinctively held her and looked down. Jiang Lan's contorted body lay motionless, a deep crimson pool of blood slowly spreading. Qin Wanwan said fearfully, "Brother, is she going to die?" Qin Yuan was about to step down from the stairs when Qin Wanwan grabbed his arm. "Brother, don't go. I'm scared." Jiang Lan opened her eyes, her weak gaze fixed on him for a moment before finally closing slowly. That gaze would later haunt Qin Yuan's dreams countless times, jolting him awake in a cold sweat. Again and again Qin Wanwan tried to console him. "Brother, she just had no luck. You provided for her well for 20 years. She already got more than her fair share." In a shocking turn, Qin Yuan slapped Qin Wanwan across the face, leaving the weeping Qin Wanwan behind. Qin Yuan smoked on the balcony all night. Qin Wanwan was right. A woman like Jiang Lan was foolish, ignorant, and stubborn. Since she had discovered their affair, she would surely demand a divorce, making their sibling scandal the talk of the town. Perhaps it's better that she's dead. Yet for some reason, those tearful yet calm eyes haunted Qin Yuan like a ghost, leaving him restless day and night. Could the woman who had cared for him for 20 years really be gone? Just like that, Qin Yuan had never given Jiang Lan a second thought. She was quiet and undemanding, like something dispensable, utterly devoid of presence. But now that she was gone, it kept reminding him, over and over, of what he had lost. It wasn't just the well-prepared daily meals, nor the neat and comfortable clothes laid out each day. The lush plants on the balcony, which Jiang Lan never seemed to tend to much before, now withered and rotted away rapidly in her absence. This quiet woman had taken with her the life of this home, along with the warmth and stability that had always been there, yet so easily overlooked. Qin Yuan thought to himself. He was just feeling a bit unaccustomed to it all. It would pass. Yet even 2 years later, he remained despondent and disinterested in his career. Gradually withdrawing from the company, he was perpetually withdrawn, sometimes even in a daze, and could no longer satisfy Chen Wanwan. Chen Wanwan soon found a new lover that day. Chen Yuan came home early, pushing open the bedroom door. He found a young man on top of Chen Wanwan, engaged in the act on their own bed. Chen Wanwan was crying out in unrestrained pleasure. Completely oblivious to his presence, Chen Yuan remained silent, gently closed the door, and quietly retreated to sit on the sofa. After some time had passed, the commotion in the room finally subsided. The young man lit a cigarette for Chen Wanwan. She took a deep drag, exhaling a cloud of smoke, and spoke in a tone of utter nonchalance. Just wait a little longer. Once I've drained Chen Yuan of all his money, we'll emigrate abroad. Chen Yuan gave a silent, bitter smile, went to the kitchen for a sharp knife, and slipped quietly into the bedroom. After a period of chaos, silence fell once more. Chen Yuan emerged, covered in blood, sat back on the sofa to smoke. After an unknowable length of time, he flicked the cigarette butt away and staggered towards the balcony. A dull thud echoed, followed by screams from pedestrians below. A sharp pain shot through Chen Yuan's chest, and he jolted upright in bed. He glanced at Chen Wanwan, who looked noticeably younger than in his dream, then quietly slipped out of bed and left the room. He had a long dream, a dream in which he and Jiang Lan had never divorced. His career had been smooth sailing all his life, the envy of everyone. How could it be as much of a mess as it is now? But at the end of the dream, he first lost Jiang Lan, then personally killed Chen Wanwan, whom he treasured above all else, before finally jumping to his death. Chen Yuan wiped the sweat from his brow. Thank goodness it was just a dream. Mylan is doing just fine. I hear she's a big boss now. Chen Wanwan is also safe and sound, fast asleep. Suddenly, a detail came back to him. Back when he was discussing the divorce with Jiang Lan, she had said that was a lifetime ago. Now, I wouldn't lift a finger even if you were dying right in front of me. Like a bolt of lightning to the mind, an unbelievable thought grew stronger and stronger. After hesitating for days, Chen Yuan finally mustered his courage and returned to Nanjing, a place he hadn't dared to set foot in again. He saw Jiang Lan, her familiar eyes and brows now framed a completely different aura. A beauty so striking he couldn't bear to look directly at her. Jiang Lan didn't answer his question. She got into that man's car and sped away into the distance. Chen Yuan left in silence, never intending to return to Nanjing again. Whether in dreams or in reality, he had messed up completely, with no chance of ever making amends. The rest of his life would be bitter, the road ahead full of torment, and so, he would just take it one day at a time. End of the full text. Story 2. When Yimo was whipped 99 times by her husband, Hu Tingyan, all because his girlfriend, Chu Wanyu, accidentally cut her finger on a fruit knife at the Wen residence. 99 lashes. Tingyan, aren't you afraid Yimo will get angry and leave you? The blood on her back was still fresh, enduring the searing pain of torn flesh. When Yimo stood trembling outside the study, just as she was about to push the door open, she overheard Hu Tingyan talking with his brother. Yimo loves me more than life itself. Once I've had my fun, I'll just say my memory came back. I'll buy her some gifts, apologize, tell her it was all my fault, that I was wrong, that I never should have forgotten the love of my life. She'll be sobbing, begging for my forgiveness, pleading with me not to leave her. Hu Tingyan's icy voice pierced her eardrums. After 26 years of growing up together, she thought they were already the most important people in each other's lives, tolerating him time and again. Yet all she got in return was the dismissive remark, just buy her a gift to cheer her up. How utterly ridiculous. Don't push it too far. What are you going to do when buying gifts doesn't work to win Yimo back? Hu Tingyan's friend reminded him offhandedly. If she couldn't take it anymore, she would have signed the divorce papers and left long ago. She wouldn't keep dragging it out. Yimo can't live without me. Back then, just because I said I didn't like Germany, she obediently turned down the chance to study there and stayed by my side. Studying computer engineering in Germany was her lifelong dream. A woman who loved me so much she'd give up her own dream. How could she just walk away from me? Her patience, her love. Hu Tingyan wielded them like a blade, using them to hurt and control her. A sharp pain pierced Wen Yimo's heart, shooting straight to her brain. She tilted her head back, staring at the ceiling, refusing to let the tears fall. She couldn't bear, and would no longer accept, Hu Tingyan's tainted love. Bang! The study door swung open, and Hu Tingyan emerged, followed closely by his friend. Have you signed the divorce papers? Wen Yimo had just straightened up when Hu Tingyan's icy voice drained all the strength from her body. As if she'd been plunged into a frozen cellar. Losing her balance, she sank to her knees. A flicker of concern passed through Hu Tingyan's eyes before he frowned and sneered. Miss Wen, you don't actually think kneeling and begging me not to divorce she will soften my heart, do you? I'm just waiting for the cooling off period to end so I can marry Wanyu and bring her home, fighting back the tears that brimmed in her eyes. When Yimo looked up at the man who was both familiar and a stranger, it felt as if her very soul was being torn apart by a demon, the pain so intense she could scarcely breathe. When he proposed to her at 20, he swore before both sets of parents, pointing to the heavens, that he would love her and only her for the rest of his life. At their wedding, he knelt on both knees, tears welling in his eyes as he slipped the ring onto her finger, saying, "When Yimo, you are my life, without you, I would lose all courage to go on living." All those grand vows and passionate oaths were nothing but shackles Huitingyan used to trap her. "Miss Wen, I despise it when women cry. Don't try to soften my heart with your tears. You'd better sign the divorce papers quietly. If you upset Wanyu, those 99 lashes will be just the beginning." Huitingyan's tone grew even more frigid, as if he intended to freeze her into an ice sculpture. Struggling to prop herself up, when Yimo leaned against the wall to appear less disheveled and said softly, "All right, I agree to the divorce." Instantly, the air around Huitingyan seemed to drop several degrees. His gaze was icy and fixed intently on Wen Yimo, as if accusing her. Why was she agreeing to the divorce so readily and decisively? Shouldn't she be refusing? Where is the divorce agreement? Without a moment's hesitation, Wen Yimo cut straight to the point and confronted Huitingyan. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of applause rang out. Hua. Tinjian's face darkened menacingly, his sharp gaze boring into Wen Yimo as if it could drill countless bloody holes into her body. Agreeing to the divorce so readily, "Miss Wen, could it be you found a lover on the side, with no sentiment left for our past?" A cold, harsh voice pierced Wen Yimo's ears, and the tears she had been holding back instantly broke free, streaming down her face. "Huitingyan, you were the one who faked amnesia. You were the one who asked for a divorce, and you were the one who lashed her 99 times." She agreed to the divorce, yet she put on this act of being unable to let go, of having suffered all the heartbreak, as if he were the victim in this marriage. "If you think I agreed too easily, Mr. Hua." A sharp, piercing scream came from downstairs. Without a moment's hesitation, Huitingyan rushed to the first floor, completely disregarding whatever she was about to say next. Gritting her teeth against the pain, when Yimo stumbled her way down the stairs, Chu Wanyu was nestled in Huitingyan's arms, weeping softly beside them. When Yimo's mother was restrained by a bodyguard, forced to her knees with a swollen cheek. "Tingyan, I should just go back home and sell fish. We may be poor, but we live with dignity. I won't be beaten or cursed at, called a kept woman or a homewrecker." Chu Wanyu's sobs came in fits and starts as she kept murmuring that she didn't want to be a caged bird and that she wanted to leave Huitingyan the tenderness in. Huitingyan's eyes slowly gave way to a bloodthirsty gleam standing by the staircase. When Yimo felt a chill run down her spine, a terrible premonition seeping from her heart into every limb. "Stop playing dead, Wen Yimo. Your mother assaulted Wanyu and called her a homewrecker. The Wen family owes me an explanation, or you can kiss your fortune goodbye." With red, swollen eyes, Wen Yimo stared desolately at the person before her, then lowered her gaze to her mother kneeling on the floor. Her parched lips moved soundlessly as she stared fixedly at Huitingyan, gambling that a shred of his conscience remained, that he wouldn't be too harsh on her out of respect for her mother as an elder. "Huitingyan, my mother watched you grow up. She's so kind-hearted she wouldn't even know how to curse someone, let alone hit anyone." Huitingyan's hand, which had been patting Chu Wanyu's, stilled. He then said, "What kind of person your mother was, I no longer remember, but Wanyu would never lie to me. Miss Wen, you have a choice: slap your mother 10 times. Or watch the Wen family business go bankrupt." Huitingyan, when Yimo screamed with all her might, the freshly healed wounds on her back tore open again, a searing, burning pain that was nothing compared to the agony tearing through her heart. "Fight, the Wen group is the life's work of your father and grandfather. I cannot let it be destroyed by my own hands." On her knees, Mrs. Wen's voice was gentle, yet her tone was unyieldingly resolute as she spoke. "Huitingyan, I'm begging you, please. Let my mother go. She's 60 years old, she can't endure any more torment." When Yimo couldn't hold on any longer and fell to her knees, pleading desperately with Huitingyan stiffened for a moment, his eyes complex, his lips twitching slightly as if he was about to speak. "Miss Wen, you're a woman too. You wouldn't want to be called a kept woman or a homewrecker, would you?" "I never intended to harm Mrs. Wen. If you just sign the divorce papers with Tingyan, I'll persuade him to let her go." Nestled in Huitingyan's arms, Chu Wanyu spoke in a fragile, trembling voice, as if she might shatter at the slightest touch. "Huitingyan, bring out the divorce agreement. I'll sign it right now." On her knees, when Yimo's vision blurred with tears as she cried out to Huitingyan in a hoarse voice, the hall fell abruptly silent. Huitingyan stood rigidly in place, making no move as he waited for Wen Yimo's next action. It's true that marriages among the wealthy are all about matching social status. A woman of humble origins like me is simply not worthy of marrying into the Hua family. Ting Yan, I wish you and Miss Wen a long and happy life together, with many children. Let's just forget each other and go our separate ways. With tears in her eyes, Chu Wanyu pushed Hua Tingyan away with force. Intending to leave the Wen family's living room, Hua Tingyan forcefully pulled Chu Wanyu into his arms with both hands, casting a cold, sharp glance at the bodyguard standing nearby. A bodyguard flung the divorce papers forcefully into Wen Yimo's face. Hua Tingyan's signature was already scrawled in the designated space on the agreement. The long, sweeping tail on the character 4 yen was a lifelong quirk of Hua Tingyan's handwriting. A single, clear tear fell as she picked up the divorce papers and the pen, signing her own name without a moment's hesitation. Farewell, Hua Tingyan too. After retrieving the divorce agreement, Hua Tingyan gently coaxed Chu Wanyu and left the Wen residence. After Hua Tingyan had gone, the bodyguard did not release Mrs. Wen. Instead, his gaze was sharp as a beak, glaring viciously at Wen Yimo as he said, not a single one of those 10 slaps for Miss Wen can be missed. 10 slaps, not a single one less. She stared in shock at the 2 bodyguards Hua Tingyan had brought, her voice trembling as she spoke. Didn't I sign the divorce papers? Why is there still a need for? That was Miss Chu's wish. We only follow Mr. Hua's orders. One of the bodyguards spoke coldly, not giving Wen Yimo the slightest regard. We only take orders from Mr. Hua. Wen Yimo laughed maniacally, like a patient just released from a mental asylum, pounding the floor incessantly. She paid no mind to the blood flowing from her wrists down her back and onto the ground. Miss Wen, if you refuse to do it, we'll have no choice but to inform Mr. Hua and cancel all cooperation with the Wen family. Hit her, daughter, hit her now. The bodyguard had barely finished speaking when Wen Yimo heard her mother's voice. Choked with sobs, she rose and walked over to her mother, then struck her across the face with a blood-stained hand. 1 slap, 2 slaps, 3 slaps. After delivering the 10th slap, Wen Yimo slumped to the floor in despair and began striking her own face. The task was complete, and the bodyguards released Wen's mother with a swollen, reddened cheek. Wen's mother crawled to Wen Yimo's side, grasped her hand, and pulled her into an embrace. Just wait 30 more days, Mom. We'll leave for Germany in 3 days and never come back, Wen Yimo said to her mother, tears welling in her eyes. Mrs. Wen nodded. Wen Yimo then took out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't contacted in a long time. Professor Liu, I need you to transfer all of the Wen family's assets to Germany within a month. I'll agree to any of your terms. All right. We'll discuss the conditions when you get to Germany. Hearing Professor Liu's firm and powerful voice, Wen Yimo finally let out a sigh of relief. As night fell, Wen Yimo lay on her bed, feigning sleep, when a familiar figure climbed through the window into her bedroom. What is Hua Tingyan doing here? She held her breath, not daring to move a muscle, and listened intently to the sounds in the room. Hua Tingyan's footsteps were light, and he didn't speak. As Hua Tingyan's figure drew near, Wen Yimo felt the clothes on her back being lifted, and a pair of ice-cold hands began to caress her back. The cool sensation washed over her, and the fiery, stinging pain from the wound subsided considerably. Yimo, I specifically bought this ointment for treating external injuries for you from abroad. I placed it on the headboard. Remember to apply it tomorrow morning. Hua Tingyan's voice was incredibly gentle, so gentle it could melt the ice of the deepest winter. With her back to Hua Tingyan, Wen Yimo's tears soaked her pillow. Wanyu is stubborn. She won't let me touch her until we have the marriage certificate. Once I'm tired of playing with her, I'll divorce her, and then we can remarry. I know you've been wronged. On the day we remarry, I'll give your father that plot of land in the east of the city as a betrothal gift. Hua Tingyan kept murmuring in Wen Yimo's ear. With every word he spoke, her heart grew colder. Only then did she realize how despicable the man behind her was. Yimo, just bear with it. I've never met such an intriguing girl before and I want to give it a try, I promise. She was the first and the last. You are the only one I acknowledge as my wife. With that, Hua Tingyan planted a kiss on Wen Yimo's back. A chill ran down Wen Yimo's spine. She lay perfectly still, suppressing the wave of nausea churning in her stomach, not wanting Hua Tingyan to know she was awake. Chu Wanyu was the first, and she will be the last. Hua Tingyan, the moment you think you can poke a hole in this relationship and start to taste the thrill of straying, you'll just keep poking holes. Testing her limits, Chu Wanyu is the first, but she will never be the last. 3. Auntie, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault for forgetting to tell Ting Yan, which led to you getting hurt. Wen Yimo had just gotten out of bed and hadn't even had time for breakfast when she saw Chu Wanyu appear in the living room, carrying a bucket of a foul-smelling, pitch-black mixture. Mrs. Wen covered her nose, staring at Chu Wanyu with a look of utter revulsion, completely baffled by her intentions. Auntie, this is A folk remedy from my hometown, a mix of soot and boy's urine. It's especially effective for reducing swelling from external injuries. Wearing disposable gloves and a mask, Chu Wanyu grabbed a handful of the black mixture and smeared it directly onto Mrs. Wen's face. Mrs. Wen shrank back desperately, trying to keep Chu Wanyu from touching her. As if oblivious to Mrs. Wen's resistance, Chu Wanyu said with a beaming smile, "Auntie, this remedy works wonders. I used this folk cure for all my childhood injuries." When Yimo could stand it no longer, she rushed up to Chu Wanyu, snatched the bucket from her hands, and pushed her away angrily. "Chu Wanyu," she said, "my mother's facial injury does not need treatment from some dubious folk remedy in your hands. The Wen family has a private physician who will develop a professional treatment plan based on her condition." In an instant, Chu Wanyu's tears fell as she spoke in utter despair. "So it's true. You rich people look down on me because I'm a fishmonger. I have my dignity too. I'll just leave and go back to selling fish. I won't let you trample on my self-respect." Chu Wanyu continued to sob and sniffle, showing not the slightest intention of actually leaving, driven to a headache by the incessant crying. When Yimo snapped angrily, "If you want to go home and sell fish, then just leave. The Wen family gate isn't locked." "Fine, I'm going." Chu Wanyu made to leave, lifting her foot as if to go, but she was pulled into an embrace by Hua Tingyan, who had just entered. "Tingyan, don't mind me, let me go. Even if I'm just a lowly fishmonger, I won't have my dignity insulted." Chu Wanyu struggled desperately in Hua Tingyan's arms, but her slender waist remained firmly locked in his powerful grip. "Be a good girl and listen, I'll get justice for you." Hua Tingyan softly coaxed Chu Wanyu while ordering his bodyguards to snatch the bucket from Wen Yimo's hands. "Miss Wen, since you think Wanyu's folk remedy is problematic, why don't you try it yourself?" As soon as Hua Tingyan finished speaking, two bodyguards firmly seized Wen Yimo. She struggled desperately, trying to refuse. "If you're unwilling, I wouldn't mind letting your mother have a try." Hua Tingyan's voice was like a demon's whisper. She gave up struggling, allowing the bodyguards to lift her clothes in front of everyone and smear that bucket of disgusting, sticky substance across her back. Tears fell uncontrollably. Wen Yimo was like a rag doll, completely at the mercy of others, her whole body reeking of a nauseating stench of urine. Hua Tingyan cast a quiet, pained glance at Wen Yimo before immediately lowering his head to pat Chu Wanyu's back. Only after the entire bucket of black mud had been smeared across Wen Yimo's back did Hua Tingyan nod in satisfaction. Then, in a princess carry, he swept Chu Wanyu away reeking of foul odor. Wen Yimo rushed straight to the bathroom. She scrubbed herself for a full hour before finally feeling free of the stench of urine. After putting on her pajamas, Wen Yimo's lips curled into a strange smile as she looked at the imported wound ointment on the nightstand. "Hua Tingyan, have you ever truly treated her as your wife?" After tossing the ointment into the trash, Wen Yimo lay on the bed facing the ceiling, tears in her eyes as she drifted into a dazed, fitful sleep. "For Wen Yimo is my woman. Anyone who dares to bully her is picking a fight with me, man or woman. I, Hua Tingyan, will not hesitate to teach them a lesson." During our senior year of high school, a few female students transferred to our school. Whenever any student did something to displease them, they would drag them into the girls' restroom and beat them repeatedly, regardless of gender. When Yimo was dragged into the girls' restroom simply because she wore the same style of dress as their leader, tap water was poured directly over her body, freezing her to the point of shivering. When she tried to cry for help, one of the girls immediately covered her mouth. Cowering in the corner, paralyzed with fear, she silently screamed in her heart, "Hua Tingyan, save me." Hua Tingyan's tall figure appeared in the girls' restroom, where he gave those girls a thorough beating and rescued her. Even though some later claimed he had barged into the girls' restroom with ill intentions towards the female students, rather than to stand up for her, Hua Tingyan never cared. He simply and quietly transferred from Class 2 to Class 1 to become her deskmate, staying by her side almost constantly. In her dazed state, when Yimyo had a dream, a beautiful dream, "Madam Wen, Chairman Hua has given the order. Miss Wen is not permitted to seek treatment at a hospital. If she falls ill, only the family doctor may be summoned." A harsh male voice jolted Wen Yimo awake. She tried to move her body but had no strength. She wanted to call for the house servants, but her throat was parched, utterly incapable of producing a sound. "My daughter's fever has reached 40 degrees Celsius, and the wound on her back is starting to fester. We must bring the fever down immediately. A high fever and infection could lead to tetanus." Mrs. Wen pleaded with the Hua family's bodyguards, but he only responded with a single icy sentence. "Didn't Miss Wen say the Wen family's private doctor is exceptional? Then let him devise a treatment plan for her." The bodyguard's words cut into Wen Yimo's heart like a knife. one syllable at a time. Dehydration from the high fever left her unable to even shed tears. Yimo is highly infectious now. She needs to be sterilized in an isolation room and cannot be treated at home. Wen's mother lowered herself completely, nearly kneeling to beg the bodyguards to spare Wen Yimo. The bodyguard stood motionless at the entrance of the Wen family villa, not uttering a single word. With no other choice, Mrs. Wen had to summon the family doctor. Without a sterile room or adequate disinfection tools, the doctor could only provide Wen Yimo with basic care, administering fever-reducing medication in the dead of night. In her feverish haze, Wen Yimo once again heard Huatinjian's whispered words. Chu Wanyu is just a little songbird. She won't threaten your position, the title of Mrs. Who will be yours and yours alone. Can't you and my mother just humor her for now? Once I'm tired of her, I'll buy you that sapphire set you love so much as compensation. It's just a bit of black mud, it's not poisonous. What's the harm in letting Wanyu put some on? Why do you have to upset the girl, Yimo? I don't want to make things hard for you, but you keep provoking Wanyu. The girl is stubborn and keeps threatening to leave. What else can I do? Huatinjian's voice seeped, word by word, into Wen Yimo's ears. Her body grew colder and colder, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. How could Huatingyan have the nerve to utter such shameless words? She desperately wanted to slap Huatingyan across the face, but she was utterly drained of strength. Unable to even lift her hand, all she could do was listen to his disgusting words. Finally, Huatingyan fell silent. He planted a light kiss on Wen Yimo's back before leaping out the window and disappearing, enduring the pain in her back. Wen Yimo lay awake all night. Her eyes were red and swollen, her throat parched and hoarse. After being given a few sips of warm water by Madame Wen, she finally mustered a little strength. Just as Madame Wen was about to examine the wound on her back, Huatingyan entered the room with Chu Wanyu. With Madame Wen's help, she turned slightly and caught sight of Chu Wanyu's tear-reddened eyes. Get out, cough, 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 get lost. Having just drunk some water and feeling slightly better, Wen Yimo mustered all her strength to drive the two of them away. Miss Wen, could you please do me a favor? I'm begging you. With tears in her eyes, Chu Wanyu spoke fearfully. Wen Yimo, still burning with fever, felt her headache worsen upon hearing Chu Wanyu's request for help. I refuse. She flatly refused, certain that whatever Chu Wanyu wanted help with couldn't be good. So you don't want the Wen family business anymore, is that it? Huatingyan threatened Wen Yimo. Wen Yimo stared fixedly at the man before her, her stomach churning with disgust. How could he be so repulsive? After a long silence in the room, Chu Wanyu's timid voice broke the quiet. I was trying to find a good feng shui spot to bury my cat, Mimi, and I accidentally hit a child, leaving him in a vegetative state. Miss Wen, please, you have to take the blame for this. I clearly had Tingyan give them money, and I clearly told them to move out of the residential area. So why was there still a child there? I don't know. I really don't know. Chu Wanyu's sobs grew louder and louder. Wen Yimo, utterly distraught, looked at the two people before her and couldn't help but vomit on the spot. Ugh, ugh, ugh. After spitting 3 times, Wen Yimo spoke softly. Huatingyan, are you asking me to take the fall for Chu Wanyu's manslaughter charge? Yes, your father will protect you anyway. This won't cost you a thing. You'll still be the proud Miss Wen. Wanyu is different. She's from a poor family with no one to shield her. If she confesses, she'll face prison time. 5. Chu Wanyu can't go to prison, but she can. It won't make any difference. Her father will protect her. Ha, Huatingyan, Chu Wanyu isn't just in debt from gambling. She's carrying the weight of a human life. Huatingyan, I wish I had never met you. As she finished speaking, Wen Yimo's entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. She tried to speak, but no sound came out no matter how hard she strained. Seeing the early symptoms of tetanus manifesting in Wen Yimo, her mother called out to Huatingyan in a state of frantic desperation. Tingyan, we can't delay any longer. If she doesn't have the surgery now, she will die. Huatingyan looked up and carefully observed Wen Yimo's physical condition. Her face was contorted with effort, yet not a sound escaped her lips. Her back was ramrod straight, utterly motionless. Huatingyan was lost in silent contemplation. What I gave Mrs. Wen was a folk remedy I've used since I was a child, completely harmless. Miss Wen, if you didn't want to help me, you could have just said so. Why pretend to be sick and frame me like this? Chu Wanyu pointed an angry finger at Wen Yimo's face and declared stubbornly she was sick, truly ill. Wen Yimo tried to open her mouth to explain that she was genuinely ill, but a spasm in her throat left her unable to make a sound. The harder she tried, the more her throat ached, and her back began to convulse uncontrollably. It hurt. She was in such pain. Tears fell silently as Wen Yimo stood rooted to the spot like a statue. Since you're unwilling to help me, Miss Wen, I'll just go to the sewing machine myself. There's no need to put on this pitiful act, making it seem as if I bullied you. I, Chu Wanyu, conduct myself with integrity and would never bully anyone. As she spoke, Chu Wanyu's own tears began to fall. Hua Tingyan took out a handkerchief and gently wiped Chu Wanyu's tears. Chu Wanyu threw herself into his arms, her sobs growing louder. Wanyu is innocent and kind. Wen Yimo, don't you dare try to bully her by faking an illness. If you want the Wen family to be safe, you'll obediently turn yourself in at the police station. Wen Yimo's tears flowed uncontrollably, the sharp pain in her heart now completely overshadowing the ache in her back. Mr. Hua, your wife hit me first. I was only defending myself. Yimo has a kind heart. She even takes injured animals she finds to the vet. How could she possibly lie? Shortly after marrying Hua Tingyan, she was targeted by a female celebrity who framed her, accusing her of workplace bullying. He stood by her side without hesitation, saying she would never lie. Now, he too could place his complete trust in another. Even if Chu Wanyu's acting was clumsy, he still stood by her side. It was never Mrs. Hua, Wen Yimo, that he trusted, but the person he loved in that moment. She was Wen Yimo, she could be Chu Wanyu, and in the future, she might be someone else entirely. Her wholehearted love felt like a cruel joke. Wen Yimo remained silent, and Hua Tingyan's patience wore thin with Chu Wanyu's incessant, hiccuping sobs. Take Wen Yimo and tie her up. Deliver her to the police station. Hua Tingyan commanded the Hua family bodyguards. Wen's mother stepped in front of her daughter to shield her, only to be shoved violently to the ground by a guard. Wen Yimo wanted to cry out mom, but the words were choked in her throat. She was completely restrained by the Hua family's bodyguards and shoved into the car. It wasn't until they reached the police station entrance that Wen Yimo was roughly pushed out of the vehicle. She is the prime culprit behind the illegal demolition in Jiaojia village. Hua Tingyan held Wen Yimo's hand and began to speak. Wen Yimo shook her head repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. Miss, if you're being forced, you can nod your head. A policewoman noticed Wen Yimo's distress and gently asked her what was wrong. No, she's not. No matter how hard Wen Yimo tried, she couldn't make a sound. She wanted to shake her head, but Hua Tingyan pulled her into his embrace, rendering her immobile. The demolition of Jiaojia village was indeed her doing. I'm her husband. I didn't want her to keep making mistakes, so I brought her to the police station. Hua Tingyan's voice was firm and icy. As he said, I think, the policewoman's voice sounded once more. If she hadn't gone too far, if it hadn't involved a life, why would I have brought my own wife to the police station? She's the one I love most. The policewoman's words were abruptly cut off by Hua Tingyan. This was followed by over an hour of intense interrogation and statement-taking. Finally, Hua Tingyan firmly held Wen Yimo's hand and signed his name on the printed statement. After leaving the police station, Wen Yimo collapsed to the ground without warning. 6. I don't care what it takes. You must save her, or I'll make sure this entire hospital goes bankrupt. In her semi-conscious state, Wen Yimo heard Hua Tingyan's hysterical voice. How hypocritical. He just forced her to take the fall for Chu Wanyu, and now he's acting as if he can't live without her. Even a professional actor couldn't match your performance. Mr. Hua, Mrs. Hua's back injury is extremely severe. She may require a skin graft. Do you think the Hua family is short of money? A cacophony of sounds flooded Wen Yimo's ears. Her mind was foggy and sluggish, utterly unable to process it. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying face down on the bed. A chill crept up her back. She tried to reach for it, but found her arms were too weak to move. Miss Wen, you're awake. Is there anything I can help you with? The familiar sound of Chu Wanyu's voice reached Wen Yimo's ears, sending a fresh chill down her spine. Who told you to come? Where are my parents? Chu Wanyu's presence in the hospital room boded no good. Wen Yimo, desperate to avoid further torment, urged her to leave immediately. President Wen and Mrs. Wen are busy dealing with the scandal of your manslaughter. They don't have time to see you. With a voice full of feigned sympathy, Chu Wanyu explained to Wen Yimo why her parents hadn't come to visit. Every word from Chu Wanyu's mouth felt like a thorn piercing Wen Yimo's heart. Get out, facing the mastermind behind it all. She wished she could tear Chu Wanyu to pieces. The only problem was, injured as she was, she couldn't even lift a knife. Miss Wen, I know you're a high society lady with a noble status, but I'm not some helpless little thing you can just push around. Fine, I'll leave. If it weren't for the fact that I pity you, sick and all alone with no one by your side, I wouldn't be doing this thankless job in the first place. Chu Wanyu kicked Wen Yimo's hospital bed, turned to leave, and collided squarely into Hua Tingyan. Tingyan, Chu Wanyu called out Hua Tingyan's name. Hua Tingyan's harsh voice immediately shot back. Wen Yimo, that's enough. Wanyu, out of the goodness of her heart, used her family's folk remedy to treat you, but because you've been pampered since childhood and have no resistance whatsoever, you ended up hospitalized. She's been racked with guilt over it. almost to the point of leaving me. Wen Yimo, don't take out your spoiled princess act on Wanyu. Don't make me have someone throw you out of this hospital. Hua Tingjian's every word was carving into Wen Yimo's heart, so delicate and spoiled, a real princess complex. Hua Tingyan, do you remember the vow you made on her 18th birthday? Yimo, you are my little princess, I will be your knight for life, protecting you, and I will never let your crown fall. The pillow was soaked with tears. When he loved her, she was his little princess. When he didn't, she was just a spoiled and willful little princess. Since Hua Tingyan couldn't stay faithful, why did he have to go and provoke her? Wanyu, let's go. Don't bother with someone who can't tell good from bad. Hua Tingyan held Chu Wanyu in his arms, whispering sweet nothings to comfort her. Tingyan, maybe I shouldn't leave after all. Miss Wen is quite pitiful. When corporation stock has plummeted 40% because of her scandal, and the board is already preparing to remove Mr. Wen from his CEO position. Chu Wanyu immediately refused Hua Tingjian's request. Right now, Mr. and Mrs. Wen are constantly seeking help from others, hoping to save his CEO position. They have no time at all to look after Miss Wen. She's all alone in that cold hospital room. It's so sad. Wen's stock plummeted by 40%, and her father is about to be ousted from the CEO position upon learning from Chu Wanyu that Wen's was facing a massive crisis. Wen Yimo struggled desperately, tumbling right out of her hospital bed with a loud thud. Hua Tingyan instantly snapped. The delicate young miss is so pampered she can't even sleep without someone attending to her. How pathetic. Tingyan, please let me stay, Chu Wanyu said with a sulky tone. I couldn't bear to see you doing such menial work. Just find her a nurse or something. After that, when Yimo was taken care of by the nurse hired by Hua Tingyan, the nurse, relying on her seniority, didn't take Wen Yimo seriously at all. When washing her back, they would deliberately press a hot towel against Wen Yimo's wounds. They fed her spoiled food and would always intentionally spill water onto her hospital bed during her convalescence in the hospital. Not only did her wounds fail to heal, but her condition deteriorated to the point where doctors had to admit her to the ICU. It wasn't until Wen's mother arrived and dismissed the caregivers that she was finally able to rest and recover properly. Mom, I've already asked my mentor to help transfer the Wen family's core assets overseas. This drop in the Wen Group stock price has actually worked in our favor. My mentor can now acquire their shares at a much lower price. I'm afraid it means you and Dad will have to leave your home behind. When Yimo informed her mother of her plan, the moment she learned that Wen Group stock had hit the limit down, she was so overwhelmed she couldn't think straight. After speaking with her mentor, she even began to think the drop in Wen Group stock might actually be a good thing for them. As for the signed confession, once she gets the divorce papers, we'll settle the score, bit by bit. As long as the three of us are together, it's not like we're leaving our home behind. Mrs. Wen held Wen Yimo's hand tightly and nodded. 7. You bitch, give me back my child's life. On the day when Yimo was discharged from the hospital, a man charged at her with a knife. As the blade closed in on Wen Yimo, her mother stepped in front of her. The icy blade plunged deep into Wen's abdomen. Mom. After crying out for her mother, Wen Yimo crouched down and pressed her hands against her mother's wound. No matter how hard she pressed, blood continued to stream relentlessly from the wound. A passing nurse saw the situation and immediately called for a doctor to begin resuscitation. The man vanished without a trace amidst the chaos. The stretcher passed through the crowded corridor, rushing all the way into the operating room. Outside the operating room, Wen Yimo, her hands covered in blood, wept uncontrollably. She paced back and forth before finally falling to her knees, murmuring a prayer. Heavenly gods, your faithful servant is willing to trade 20 years of her life for my mother's safety. The red light outside the operating room remained on, with medical staff coming and going. Who has type O blood? The patient is hemorrhaging heavily, and the blood bank supply is running low, the doctor shouted outside the door, and several kind-hearted people raised their hands, offering to donate blood. When Yimo knelt on the ground, kowtowing in gratitude for the help from the kind strangers. As night fell, after a 10-hour surgery, Mrs. Wen was finally wheeled out, her face covered with a white cloth. I'm sorry, the patient's liver was shattered, and we couldn't stop the bleeding. She passed away from excessive blood loss. The moment the doctor finished speaking, Wen Yimo collapsed to the floor. 3 days later, the Wen family held a funeral for Mrs. Wen. Hua Tingyan, your mother-in-law really has passed away. Wen Yimo might lie to you, but would I ever lie to you? Wen Yimo, clutching her mother's memorial tablet in a state of utter devastation, happened to overhear Hua Tingjian's brother talking to him on the phone. I know you wouldn't lie to me, but is it possible you've been deceived by Wen Yimo as well? Hua Tingjian's icy voice came through the phone. Wen Yimo's gaze, like a vengeful spirit clawing its way out of hell, fixed itself unwaveringly on Hua Tingyan's brother Hua Tingyan. You liar, who's the real fraud here, pretending to be devoted to Chu Wanyu, acting like you couldn't live without her, all to deceive her, faking amnesia to trick her. If you hadn't been so greedy and demanding, her mother would never have died. The day Hua Tingyan returns to the country will be the day she exacts her revenge. You're out of your mind, no matter what. Wen Yimo would never lie about her own mother's death. Hua Tingyan's brother, his emotions spiraling out of control, raised his voice as he confronted Hua Tingyan. Other women might not. But Wen Yimo is a different story. You know perfectly well how much she loves me. To avoid divorce and keep me, she even had her mother fake her own death, trying to guilt-trip me. Too bad I don't fall for that. Hua Tingyan's brother shook his head, hung up the phone, and turned around only to bump right into Wen Yimo. You heard everything just now. Hua Tingyan's brother stared at her in utter shock. Humph. She gave Hua Tingyan's brother a curt, dismissive grunt. To her own surprise, she realized that hearing Hua Tingyan's hurtful words didn't bring sadness, only hatred. Then you. Hua Tingyan's friend's fingers trembled slightly as he held the phone, his words faltering as he dared not ask further, whether Hua Tingyan has truly lost his memory or is just pretending. There's no future for us, a life stands between us. After all, at the mention of a life, Wen Yimo's hand clenched tightly around her mother's memorial tablet. What will you do now? Too guilt-ridden to notice Wen Yimo's white-knuckled grip on the tablet, Hua Tingyan's brother asked her softly. I'll take my father away from this place of sorrow, to a serene and beautiful place to heal his psychological wounds. My parents were childhood sweethearts, deeply devoted to each other through thick and thin. My mother's passing has hit him incredibly hard. I don't want to lose my father right after losing my mother. After saying this, Wen Yimo, holding her mother's memorial tablet, turned and left. Hua Tingyan's brother couldn't shake the feeling that he was overlooking some details, but he just couldn't put his finger on what they were. Everything is ready for you, Yimo. I'll send a helicopter to bring you to Germany tonight. 3 days later, when Yimo received a call from her teacher afterwards, she went to the Civil Affairs Bureau alone and collected her copy of the divorce certificate. The moment she stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau holding the certificate, she set it on fire. Flames rose, and the divorce certificate in her palm seared her hand, just as it seared her heart. The kind face of her mother surfaced in her mind. Hua Tingyan, you owe me a life. I will come to collect it myself one day. 8. After I got the divorce certificate, did Wen Yimo go and make a scene at the Xie family's old mansion, clutching the bright red divorce certificate? Hua Tingyan pulled out his phone and called his best friend, wanting to confirm Wen Yimo's current state. She's leaving Shanghai tonight. If you still have any feelings for her, I hope you'll give her a proper apology. His friend's voice carried a hint of coldness as he urged Hua Tingyan, leaving Shanghai. Wen Yimo really has some nerve. She's even managed to fool you. She loves me more than life itself. How could she bear to leave me? Hua Tingyan let out a derisive snort and said, it seems Wen Yimo didn't make a scene this time. Instead, she's trying a different tactic to get him to give up on Chu Wanyu. Not bad. She's finally using her head. Pity he won't be fooled once he's had his fill of Chu Wanyu. He'll naturally come back to remarry. If she's truly willing to let go, how will you handle it? In Hua Tingyan's brother's mind flashed the image of Wen Yimo's utterly lifeless eyes on the day of her mother's funeral, as she asked him quietly, it seems Wen Yimo has fooled you thoroughly. Tell Wen Yimo that in 10 days, I'm marrying Wanyu and Dolly, and she's invited. Hua Tingyan then hung up the phone. Tingyan, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been so impatient and proceeded with the demolition without a proper investigation, Miss Wen wouldn't have had a valid reason to emotionally blackmail you. With the Wen family stocks hitting rock bottom, as the former Mrs. Xia, she's undoubtedly hoping you'll help stabilize the Wen Corporation's share price. Chu Wanyu leaned her entire body against Xia Tingyan's chest, murmuring softly, it's all my fault. I didn't properly investigate the situation in Zhao Village and forced the demolition, which led to the deaths of those children. Xia Tingyan gently stroked Chu Wanyu's hair, kissed her forehead, and patiently soothed her, saying, regarding the Zhao Village matter, the Wen family could have easily settled it with money, yet, Miss Wen insists on picking a fight with someone like me who has lost his memory. The only person I love now is you. No matter what she does, it's meaningless. Tingyan, you're so mean. Nestled in Hua Tingyan's embrace, Chu Wanyu let out a coquettish murmur. There's something even more infuriating. Do you want it? Hua Tingyan leaned close to Chu Wanyu's ear, his voice a warm, intimate whisper. Chu Wanyu's cheeks flushed crimson. She pushed Hua Tingyan away and fled in a fluster. A faint, uneasy feeling stirred in Hua Tingyan's heart as the corner of his mouth lifted in a smirk. After a few seconds' pause, he shook his head immediately. Wen Yimo's recent actions had indeed become much more cunning. He had almost been fooled himself watching Chu Wanyu's figure recede into the distance. He hurriedly gave chase as night fell quietly over Shanghai. A helicopter from Germany touched down on the open ground of the Wen family villa, holding her mother's ashes and leading her father, whose hair had suddenly turned gray. When Yimo boarded the helicopter, "No money, Chu Wanyu. In 10 days you'll be the rightful Mrs. Xia." "How could you have no money?" In a guest room of the Xia residence, Chu Wanyu received an unwelcome phone call, her brow furrowed. How dare that good-for-nothing come asking her for money? He was hired to kill Wen Yimo, but ended up killing Mrs. When instead. Luckily, she was clever enough to keep Xia Tingyan calm and prevent him from discovering that Mrs. Wen was truly dead, and that useless fool still had the nerve to demand the final payment. Utterly shameless. "Chu Wanyu, don't you dare play games with me." The Hui Group's official Weibo and contact information are clearly listed online. Gritting her teeth, Chu Wanyu had no choice but to agree. "Give me your account details, I'll transfer the money tomorrow." "Now you're talking." Hearing the man's smug words, Chu Wanyu nearly fainted on the spot. Clang, the door to the guest room opened, and Hu Tingyan walked in. "Transfer the money tomorrow." "What money?" Chu Wanyu was startled inside. She turned to look at Hu Tingyan, her expression instantly turning pitiful as she spoke. "Some distant relatives of mine heard I'm about to become Mrs. Xia. They're threatening to smash my parents' fish stall if I don't pay them." "Tingyan, that stall is my parents' life's work. We can't let anyone destroy it." Hu Tingyan wrapped an arm around Chu Wanyu's waist, pulling out a handkerchief to gently dab at the non-existent tears at the corner of her eye. "You're going to be Mrs. Hu soon, yet you're still worried about money. Your parents' fish stall is important. Give them whatever amount they need. From now on, my money is your money." Hu Tingyan's voice was gentle, coaxing Chu Wanyu as if she were a child. Chu Wanyu kissed him, her heart full of happiness. With his other hand, he tightened his grip on Chu Wanyu's waist, deepening the kiss. As the kiss went on, a deep flush crept across both their faces. Hu Tingyan's breathing grew heavy, his nostrils flaring with hot gasps. As his hand began to wander instinctively downward, Chu Wanyu immediately broke free from Hu Tingyan's embrace and pushed him away. Bang, the door slammed shut. Staring at the closed door, Hu Tingyan's gaze was chillingly cold. The first time must be saved for the wedding night. Just a little canary. Once he's tired of playing with her, he'll pack her and her troublesome parents off and send them away from Shanghai. 9. The bride and groom may now exchange rings. Chu Wanyu, dressed in a pure white wedding gown, gazed at Hu Tingyan with flushed cheeks and eyes full of tender affection. Hu Tingyan's gaze was distant, his eyes drifting almost imperceptibly toward the guest seats. Not a single person from the Wen family came. How could that be? Is Wen Yimo really not going to object? Will she just stand by and watch him marry Chu Wanyu home? Or, the bride and groom may now exchange rings. Hu Tingyan held the wedding ring, hesitating to exchange it, prompting the priest to call out once more with solemn gravity. Coming to his senses, Hu Tingyan slid the ring onto Chu Wanyu's ring finger. Chu Wanyu, with a bashful smile, then placed her ring on Hu Tingyan's finger. "The groom may now kiss the bride." After the pastor finished speaking, Hu Tingyan kissed Chu Wanyu on the lips in front of everyone. Their kiss was passionate and lingering. Under Hu Tingyan's masterful technique, Chu Wanyu's breath grew ragged, her legs weakened, and she nearly collapsed. After the kiss ended, Hu Tingyan, his wedding band glinting, still cast a glance toward the guest seats from the corner of his eye. The Wen family had still not arrived. His gaze turned icy for a moment before returning to normal. Tingyan, Chu Wanyu, clad in a sheer black lace nightgown, sat on the edge of the bed. With flushed cheeks, she called out Hu Tingyan's name in a sweet, coquettish voice fresh from the shower. Hu Tingyan felt his body tense up at her flirtatious tone, his Adam's apple bobbing. "What's the rush? Can't wait." Hu Tingyan slowly approached Chu Wanyu, his fingers threading through her hair as he bent down and pushed her onto the bed. A flurry of kisses then rained down on Chu Wanyu's body, and the black silk nightgown she wore was instantly reduced to tatters. "Be gentle, Tingyan, it's my first time." Lost in the haze of passion, Chu Wanyu pleaded in a husky voice. Hu Tingyan slowed his movements, pressing a kiss to Chu Wanyu's delicate collarbone. "Be good, just relax." After a night of tenderness, as the first light of dawn crept into the sky, Hu Tingyan took out his phone and stared at Wen Yimo's WeChat. Utterly silent and empty, he opened the moment's feed, but her profile was nowhere to be found. Wen Yimo had blocked him. Hu Tingyan opened his contacts, found the number saved as "my wife," and dialed. "The number you have dialed is not in service. The number you have dialed is not in service. The number you have dialed is not in service." A mechanical busy signal, indicating the number was out of service area, came from the phone. Hu Tingyan forcefully ended the call, his face ashen with fury. "Great, When Yimo's method this time was truly effective, he then dialed his assistant's number. "Spare no expense, I want you to secure the Oppenheimer blue diamond set at the auction." The assistant hesitated for a moment before replying, "As a wedding gift for your wife, she'll be over the moon." "It's not for her." Hu Tingyan immediately denied it. "That was a gift for Wen Yimo, as compensation for her taking the blame for Wan Yu." As soon as Hu Tingyan finished speaking, his assistant immediately fell silent. Mr. Xia, after Mrs. Wen passed away, Miss Wen and Mr. Wen vanished without a trace. No one in the entire city of Shanghai has seen them. "Are you lying to me?" Hu Tingyan questioned his own assistant coldly. "Mr. Xia, you're my boss. How would I dare lie to you?" As the assistant finished speaking, Xia Tingyan's heart raced, his mind buzzing. Without a second thought for Chu Wanyu lying in bed, he turned and left the room. He drove straight to the Wen family's old estate. The door was answered by a woman he didn't recognize. The woman informed him that Wen Yimo had sold her the villa a month prior. Later, because a funeral had been held at the property, the Wen family didn't even ask for the final payment and transferred the deed directly to her. "The funeral? He sold the villa to her a month ago. You're lying to me, aren't you?" Hu Tingyan's gaze turned icy as he seized the woman before him, demanding an answer. The woman recoiled in fright from Hu Tingyan's sudden move, not daring to utter a word. "The Wen family has other properties. They must be staying somewhere else. Yimo loved him so much. How could she bear to leave him?" 10. Hu Tingyan sped off in his sports car. He checked all the Wen family properties he could remember, only to be told that Wen Yimo had already sold them all off at a low price. He slumped in the car and lit a cigarette wreathed in smoke. His head throbbed with pain and his mind buzzed. How could Yimo leave him? How could she leave him so easily? With a cigarette lit, Hu Tingyan took out his phone and made another call to his assistant. "Keep bidding on the sapphire, and spread the word that it's my wedding gift to Chu Wanyu." After giving the order to his assistant, he drove to the home he shared with Chu Wanyu. That sapphire was Wen Yimo's favorite gem. She would undoubtedly be furious once she learned he had given it to Chu Wanyu as a wedding present. The car pulled into the driveway of their marital home. Chu Wanyu stood there in a white dress, her gaze hazy as she looked toward him. As he stepped out of the car, Chu Wanyu immediately rushed into Hu Tingyan's arms, weeping with a heart-wrenching sorrow. "Tingyan, I thought you didn't want me anymore. I was so scared." Gazing at the woman sobbing pitifully in his arms, Hu Tingyan's heart softened. He gently brushed away the tear at the corner of her eye with his finger. "You're my wife. How could I ever not want you?" "Really?" Chu Wanyu looked at him with suspicion. "Of course." Hu Tingyan answered her without a hint of guilt, then scooped her up in a princess carry and walked into the bathroom. The water in the shower grew hotter, and so did the heat between the two of them. As dawn broke once more, Hu Tingyan opened WeChat. His assistant informed him that the sapphire had been successfully bid on and the message had been sent. He walked out onto the balcony, watching the slowly rising sun, a faint curve forming at the corner of his mouth. Soon, Yimo would be back by his side. "Yimo, since you're new here and not familiar with the place, I'll have my nephew show you around." Inside a computer research center in Germany, when Yimo's mentor, Lu Yuanshan, was introducing her to the various equipment in the laboratory. "Thank you, Senior Lu. I appreciate it." When Yimo looked at the man before her, who had a hint of roguish charm, and spoke politely, "Lu Machin, I look forward to working with you." Lu Machin extended his hand, when Yimo grasped it firmly and said with a smile, "I look forward to your guidance as well, Senior Lu." As the three of them walked through the lab, a shadow of gloom inadvertently fell over Wen Yimo's eyes. Hu Tingyan, back then, to marry you, she gave up a brilliant future and abandoned the computer science major she was so passionate about. It led to the wrongful and tragic death of her mother. Now, she will use the computer industry she loves most to avenge her mother. She will recover every piece of evidence of your and Chu Wanyu's crimes. 3 days later, Tingyan, you're so wonderful. I can't believe you bought such a precious sapphire for me as a wedding gift. After seeing the viral short video about the Hui Group's CEO going to great lengths and spending a fortune to buy a sapphire for his beloved wife, Chu Wanyu was so overjoyed she leaped into Hu Tingyan's arms. His brow furrowed slightly for a moment before his expression smoothed over into calmness. "As long as you like it." Hu Tingyan's words made Chu Wanyu even happier, and she couldn't help but kiss his lips. "Wanyu, are you trying to get frisky in broad daylight?" Soon, the two were tangled up in a playful tussle that didn't subside until nightfall. After kissing Chu Wanyu's forehead, Hu Tingyan took out his phone and stared at his assistant's WeChat message. The assistant still hasn't replied with any news about Wen Yimo. He gripped his phone tightly and sent a message. "Ramp up the publicity about me buying the sapphire for Chu Wanyu." Chu Wanyu moved to his side and leaned over to see Hu Tingyan's message. "Ramp up the publicity, Tingyan. I never imagined you loved me this much, wanting to tell the whole world that I'm your wife." A sincere smile spread across Chu Huanyu's face, this time with no trace of pretense. Hu Tingyan didn't speak, his gaze fixed intently on his phone. 11 Over the course of a month, Hu Tingyan and Chu Huanyu explored every conceivable position within their marital home. Gradually, Hu Tingyan began to grow weary. "Tingyan, my period is over, we can." Chu Huanyu, having tasted the sweetness, pressed her body against Hu Tingyan's chest and called his name in a hoarse voice. "The Hua group has an important meeting tonight that I need to attend to." Hu Tingyan tactfully declined Chu Huanyu and turned to leave the bridal chamber. Sitting in the underground parking garage, he restlessly scrolled through his phone. A month had passed, a whole month, and when Yimo still hadn't called her, did she really not love him anymore? After lighting one up, Hu Tingyan finished smoking it irritably, then opened his phone and sent a WeChat message to his primary physician. "Please prepare a medical report stating that I have regained my memory." In the dead of night, Chu Huanyu sat on the bed wearing a black slip dress, gazing at Hu Tingyan with a dazed look in her eyes. "Tingyan, you're finally back." Chu Huanyu's voice was coquettish, while Hu Tingyan's gaze was icy cold as he stood motionless in the doorway. "Miss Chu, let's get a divorce." Hu Tingyan's words caused Chu Huanyu's body to freeze instantly, and she began to doubt whether she had heard him correctly. "Miss Chu, my wife is Wen Yimo. Marrying you was never my true intention. The only person I love is my wife, Wen Yimo. If you only love Wen Yimo, then what am I to you? Just a plaything to amuse them when they're bored." Chu Huanyu glared at Hu Tingyan with venom in her eyes. "Hu Tingyan, if you only love one person, then why did you pretend to have amnesia and be with me? You still have feelings for me, don't you?" At this moment, all coquettishness vanished from Chu Huanyu's voice, leaving only a desperate longing for the answer to this question. So Chu Huanyu knew he was faking amnesia. Hu Tingyan stared at her as if he didn't recognize the woman before him at all. "No, how could I possibly fall in love with an amusing little canary?" Hu Tingyan answered Chu Huanyu's question bluntly. "Haha, I could never fall in love with a caged canary." "Good, very good." Dressed in a black silk gown, Chu Huanyu let out a madwoman's laugh. Her sincere heart was nothing more than a plaything for Hu Tingyan. "Hua Tingyan, if I can't have you, then you'll never win back Wen Yimo." Chu Huanyu laughed maniacally, all traces of her former grace and gentleness gone. "You're the one indirectly responsible for Wen Yimo's mother's death. She will never forgive you in this lifetime." "What, my mother-in-law is really dead? Wasn't that a scheme Yimo deliberately designed to win him back?" Hu Tingyan staggered backward, his entire body beginning to tremble. Fear and helplessness flooded his mind. "You're lying, aren't you?" Finally, Hu Tingyan spoke up in a last-ditch struggle. "Everyone in Shanghai knows that Mrs. Wen was stabbed at the hospital entrance by someone from Zhao family village and died from her wounds. You, Mr. Hua, are the only one who doesn't know." Chu Huanyu glared at Hu Tingyan with a ferocious expression, a cruel smile twisting her lips as she spoke. With a heavy thud, Hu Tingyan dropped to his knees right there on the floor, clutching his head in his hands. It was all true, his mother-in-law's death. It was all true. His brother wasn't fooled by Yimo. Their mother-in-law really did pass away. He's the one who caused his mother-in-law's death. No wonder Yimo ignored him and blocked him. Chu Huanyu, sign the divorce papers now, or else, on his knees. Hu Tingyan glared up at Chu Huanyu, threatening her. Chu Huanyu looked at him impassively and said with a smile, "Divorce? Hu Tingyan, we're the same kind of people, we should be together forever." 12 No, I'm nothing like you. The only person I will ever love is Yimo. Still kneeling on the ground, Hu Tingyan hurriedly denied being the same kind of person as Chu Huanyu. He was different from Chu Huanyu. He and Yimo were childhood sweethearts with a deep bond. To him, Chu Huanyu was nothing more than a caged canary in his hand. "The only one I love is Wen Yimo. You're the one who gave Wen Yimo those 99 lashes on her back. You're the one who had her arrested and made her take the fall for me. You're also the one indirectly responsible for her mother's death. Hu Tingyan, which part of you do you think Wen Yimo could ever forgive?" Every word from Chu Huanyu was like an iron needle, piercing deep into Hu Tingyan's heart. One stab at a time, he only wanted to force Yimo into agreeing to the divorce. He never imagined it would lead to such dire consequences. "This is your last chance. Sign the divorce papers." With red-rimmed eyes, Hu Tingyan spoke coldly, his gaze fixed on Chu Huanyu like venom. "Divorce. As long as I refuse, I will forever remain the legitimate Mrs. Xia." Meeting Hua Tingyan's venomous gaze, Chu Huanyu did not flinch in the slightest, adamantly refusing the divorce. The position of Mrs. Xia was something she had fought hard to obtain. How could she possibly give it up so easily? "Fine." The air around Hu Tingyan plummeted, and he uttered a single, ghostly "fine." Chu Huanyu's venomous smile transformed into one of smug triumph. she slowly approached Hu Tingyan, cupped his face, and said, "Tingyan, you must believe in my sincerity toward you." Hu Tingyan stared fixedly at Chu Wanyu. Immediately after, the Hu family's bodyguards burst through the door and bound her. Chu Wanyu stared at Hu Tingyan in utter shock. The bodyguards seized Chu Wanyu, who cried out in alarm, "I am Mrs. Hua, how dare you lay a hand on me?" The bodyguards exchanged uncertain glances, frozen in place, and turned their heads toward Hu Tingyan, who had just risen to his feet. "President Hua, I'm the boss here, you do exactly as I say." Chu Wanyu stared at Hu Tingyan, the man who had once sworn to love her for all eternity, her face ashen and devoid of expression. She remained silent for a long time. What did her genuine heart even mean to this man? "I was going to let you off, but your words just reminded me. Because of you, Yimo suffered 99 lashes, which led to her mother's untimely death. If I return all of this to you, little by little, Yimo will surely forgive me." Hu Tingyan waved his hand, ordering the bodyguards to take Chu Wanyu outside the courtyard to carry out the flogging. "You're insane, Hu Tingyan, you're a complete and utter madman." Chu Wanyu, hoisted up by the bodyguards, let out a piercing scream. No matter how Chu Wanyu screamed, Hu Tingyan remained unmoved, silently watching as the bodyguards pinned her down by the swimming pool. Hu Tingyan took the whip handed to him by a bodyguard. 1 lash, 2 lashes, 3 lashes. Only after delivering the 99th lash did Hu Tingyan finally relent. With her back beaten to a bloody pulp, Chu Wanyu wore a savage grin and spoke weakly. "Hu Tingyan, if you think Wen Yimo will ever forgive you, you're dreaming." Smack. The moment Chu Wanyu finished speaking, the bodyguard's hand cracked across her face. Blood welled at the corner of her mouth, yet Chu Wanyu's savage smile remained. Hu Tingyan sent the video of him whipping Chu Wanyu 99 times to Wen Yimo's WeChat account, but the only response he received was a red exclamation mark. "Bring Chu Wanyu's mother to me." Frowning deeply, Hu Tingyan waved his hand, instructing the Hua family bodyguards to bring Chu Wanyu's mother to his and Chu Wanyu's marital bedroom. For the next half-month, Chu Wanyu and her mother endured different forms of torment every day. Xie Tingyan would also send the video of the mother and daughter being tortured to Wen Yimo's WeChat. The only response he received was a cold red exclamation mark. "Lock the mother and daughter in the basement," Hu Tingyan commanded the bodyguards. 12. The Hua Corporation's firewall is under attack by an unknown hacker. 3 years later, Hu Tingyan, dressed in monastic robes with prayer beads around his wrist, listened to his subordinates report. "An unknown hacker." Xie Tingyan fell into deep thought. "Could it be? Assemble a team of experts for me. We must locate her IP address." A long-absent smile appeared on Xie Tingyan's gaunt face. "Yimo, she's finally back." After all these years in business, the Hua family hasn't made any mortal enemies in the industry. The only person who might attack the Hua family is Yimo. After all, she was a top student in Tsinghua University's computer science program, spotted by a leading German expert who invited her to study abroad. If he hadn't proposed to keep her here, she would have long been a world-renowned computer prodigy. Hu Tingyan kept fiddling with the prayer beads in his hand, his heart racing. Upon hearing Hu Tingyan's order, Xie immediately left the CEO's office to assemble a team of experts. After his subordinate left, Hu Tingyan took out his phone and gazed tenderly at the contact saved as "my wife." For 3 years, he had sent WeChat messages to Wen Yimo every day, only to be met with the cold, red exclamation mark of a failed delivery every day. He hoped Wen Yimo would remove him from the blacklist. After 3 years of waiting, Wen Yimo still hadn't taken him off the blacklist. Now, he finally had the chance to explain the old misunderstanding to Yimo. No matter the time or place, the only woman he considered his wife was Wen Yimo. "Miss Wen, the Hu group is counterattacking. They're trying to locate us." In a villa in Shanghai, Wen Yimo's assistant alerted her that the Hu group was launching a counteroffensive against her moves. "Good, let them try." Seated at the main console, Wen Yimo replied to her assistant while typing on her keyboard. "Understood, Miss Wen." The assistant ignored the actions of the experts hired by the Hua family, allowing them to continue their assault on the company's firewall. "Inform Mr. Hua that we have located the hacker's position." The head of the Hua group's tech team was about to claim credit from Hu Tingyan. "Boss, it's bad. Our firewall has been completely breached by hackers. The company's confidential files have been copied and pasted," a member of the tech team said in a panic. The team leader stared at the computer screen, his face instantly turning pale. "It's over. It's all over. The company's confidential files have been stolen." The head of the tech team lay limp in the recliner, completely motionless. "Our Yimo is amazing. She got the Hua family's confidential documents without breaking a sweat." Lu Machin looked at the file on the computer, gently stroking Wen Yimo's hair, his expression full of tenderness. "The Wen family, gone for 3 years, is about to make its comeback, when Yimo turned her head and flashed a smile at Lu Machin. Back then, Hu Tingyan had forced her to take the fall for Chu Wanyu, causing one corporation's stock to hit the limit down. Her mother was tragically stabbed by a passerby. She was determined to make Hu Tingyan pay for all of it, but before that, Yimo, let me show you something fun. Releasing his fingers from Wen Yimo's head, Lu Machin took a USB drive from his pocket and handed it to her. She plugged the USB drive into the computer, and segments of a recorded phone call began playing in Wen Yimo's ears. When Yimo is being discharged from the hospital tomorrow, you will pose as the bereaved father from Zhao family village. When you see her, you are to stab her. Remember, aim for a vital spot. Make absolutely certain Wen Yimo does not survive. I got the wrong person. I killed Wen Yimo's mother. As the recording kept playing, Wen Yimo's face grew paler and paler. Her mother's death was no accident, but a meticulously planned murder orchestrated by Chu Wanyu. Wen Yimo's hands clenched tighter, a single tear falling from her eye. If she hadn't fallen in love with Hu Tingyan, if she hadn't married him, her mother wouldn't have died so young. It was all her fault. She was determined to seek justice for her mother. Yimo, I've already sent the lawyer's letter to the Hu family on your behalf. Noticing Wen Yimo's tears, Lu Machin took out a handkerchief and gently wiped them away, speaking softly. When Yimo gave Lu Machin a nod. It's been 3 years. It's time for Hu Tingyan and the others to make a decision. 13. Mr. Hua. We were unable to locate the hacker's address. Furthermore, seated in the CEO's chair, Hu Tingyan continued to thumb his prayer beads and asked calmly, and what? His assistant replied timidly, and the company's internal data has been stolen and copied. I see. Have the entire tech department write 10,000-word self-criticisms. Hu Tingyan looked up at his trembling assistant and spoke in a measured tone. Just write a 10,000-word self-criticism. The assistant's body was still trembling as he stared at Hu Tingyan in disbelief. You'd better leave the office before I change my mind. Fingering his prayer beads, Hu Tingyan's mind was filled with Wen Yimo's lively, lovely face as he pondered how to explain the matter of Chu Wanyu to her. As long as he sincerely reflects on his mistakes and apologizes, Yimo will definitely forgive him. Seeing the temperamental CEO, who had been cold and unpredictable ever since Miss Wen left, finally change his demeanor, the assistant immediately fled the office, afraid he might change his mind. Oh. And bring me that set of sapphires. Before the assistant could even leave the CEO's office, Hu Tingyan's words immediately reached his ears. The assistant nodded and promptly left the CEO's office. It's been 3 years. Has Yimo lost weight or gained some? Hu Tingyan kept picturing what Wen Yimo would look like when he saw her again. Knock, knock, knock. The door to the president's office was knocked on once again. Hu Tingyan's brow was furrowed, a hint of impatience showing. Come in, a female secretary scurried nervously up to Hu Tingyan and produced a delivery slip. Mr. Hua, Miss Wen Yimo is suing you. The secretary's voice grew softer and softer, until she was almost too afraid to speak. Miss Wen Yimo was the absolute apple of Mr. Hua's eye. Now that she was suing him, the secretary couldn't even imagine how terrible he must be feeling. She's suing me. His fingers, which had been toying with the prayer beads, stilled. Hu Tingyan's gaze suddenly turned icy, then a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He had been unable to locate Yimo all this time, leaving him with no way to explain the past misunderstanding to her. Now, this very lawsuit had conveniently revealed Yimo's whereabouts to him. He no longer needed to exhaust himself searching for her. Hu Tingyan dismissed his secretary from the CEO's office with a wave of his hand. 3 days later, the trial for the case in which Hu Tingyan framed Wen Yimo, leading to her mother's death, officially commenced. 14. Yimo, in the courthouse corridor, Hu Tingyan, dressed in a tailored suit and wearing their wedding band on his finger, called out Wen Yimo's name with bitter anguish. Why isn't your wife, Chu Wanyu, by your side? I have some business with her. Wen Yimo glanced around several times but saw no sign of Chu Wanyu, leaving her deeply puzzled. Yimo, you are the only one who will ever be my wife. I was deceived by Chu Wanyu back then because I had lost my memory. I've already punished Chu Wanyu and her daughter. After saying this, Hu Tingyan walked straight to Wen Yimo's side and played her the video of him tormenting Chu Wanyu and her daughter. After watching a segment of the video, Wen Yimo immediately pushed Hu Tingyan away. This man was even more terrifying than she had imagined. Back then, he was willing to sacrifice the entire Wen family for Chu Wanyu. Now that he no longer loves her, he feels free to torment Chu Wanyu and her daughter without a second thought. He truly has no heart. Yimo, unprepared for Wen Yimo to shove him away, Hu Tingyan staggered back a few steps. He looked at her with profound loss, desperate to explain that he hadn't meant for things to turn out that way. It was just amnesia. Hu Tingyan, were you really suffering from amnesia back then? When Yimo looked at Hu Tingyan with a playful gaze as she questioned him, Yimo found out he was faking his amnesia. Impossible, that matter was handled flawlessly back then. Yimo, I was truly suffering from amnesia back then. That's the only reason I was deceived by Chu Wanyu. Don't you know how much I love you? Steadying himself, Hu Tingyan straightened his custom-tailored suit and spoke without a trace of guilt. Impressive, Hu Tingyan, your acting skills have truly reached new heights. With a performance worthy of an Oscar, it's no wonder I was completely fooled by you back then. After when Yimo uttered these words coldly, she picked up her briefcase and headed towards the courthouse. Whether Hu Tingyan admits it or not, the fact remains that he framed her for murder. It is an undeniable fact that her mother died because of him. If it weren't for her teacher's extensive connections, she might have been sentenced to life imprisonment. Now, all she wants is to seek justice for the years of injustice she has suffered. Watching when Yimo turn away, Hu Tingyan sprinted forward, trying to grab her hand. Snap, Hu Tingyan's outstretched hand was immediately slapped away by Lu Machin. Hu Tingyan glared at Lu Machin, who had suddenly appeared in his line of sight. Who are you? Hu Tingyan clenched his fist, feeling an inexplicable hostility towards Lu Machin. I'm Yimo's boyfriend. Nice to meet you, ex-husband. Faced with Hu Tingyan's open hostility, Lu Machin's gaze sharpened, and he introduced himself point-blank. Boyfriend, you're lying. Yimo loves me so much. There's no way she'd fall for someone else. Hu Tingyan swung both fists, aiming straight for Lu Machin. Lu Machin promptly returned the favor, slapping Hu Tingyan right back. In an instant, the two men were grappling with each other. If you two would like to be detained, by all means, continue. Just as they were about to escalate the fight, court staff appeared before them and intervened with a worried expression. When Yimo immediately went to Lu Machin's side, took out a handkerchief, and gently wiped his wound. He's just a lunatic, Machin. There's no need to get worked up over him. As she tended to Lu Machin's wound, when Yimo gently reminded him, just a lunatic. 15. In Yimo's heart, he had become nothing more than a nuisance. Hu Tingyan stared fixedly at Wen Yimo and Lu Machin. As Wen Yimo continued to gently tend to Lu Machin's wound, Lu Machin gazed at Wen Yimo with infatuation, then leaned in and whispered something in her ear, causing her to blush and playfully pound his chest. Hu Tingyan's face was a mask of utter humiliation as memories of his time with Wen Yimo in university flooded his mind. Back then, he could make Wen Yimo blush with a simple tease, sending her flustered and fleeing. But now, it was someone else who stood by her side. It was all a lie. Every bit of it. Yimo had staged the whole thing, hiring actors just to deceive him. They were so deeply in love. How could Yimo just give up on him? Hu Tingyan stared blankly at the two people before him, unable to believe that Wen Yimo would ever abandon him. Treating Hu Tingyan as if he were air, Wen Yimo took Lu Machin's hand and walked into the courtroom. The courtroom was solemn and silent, yet Hu Tingyan's gaze never left Wen Yimo's side. Mr. Hu Tingyan, do you have any explanation regarding the evidence submitted by MS? Wen Yimo submitted the intersection surveillance footage from the Zhejiang demolition to the judge. After verifying the video's authenticity, the judge questioned Hu Tingyan in the video. Personnel from the demolition department can be heard shouting, "Hu Corporation demolition, clear the area immediately. You get hurt, it's your own fault. I am Chairman Hu's father-in-law. Anyone who dares to cross me won't be able to survive in Shanghai. Your Honor, residents from Zhao Village informed me that my father-in-law was involved in a forced eviction. As I was still married to MS, Wen Yimo at the time, I naturally assumed it was her father who was responsible for the violent demolition. MS. Wen Yimo was suffering from severe sepsis at the time and was in no condition to explain the situation to me. That is why I had her taken to the police station to confess. Hu Tingyan calmly explained the course of events to the judge. After Hu Tingyan finished speaking, Wen Yimo was not surprised. Hu Tingyan has always been this shameless. MS. Wen Yimo, do you have any other evidence to submit regarding this matter? Hu Tingyan's words easily cleared him of suspicion, prompting the judge to ask Wen Yimo once more if she had any other evidence. Yes, Your Honor. Wen Yimo promptly submitted a piece of audio evidence. I refuse. Do you no longer care about the Wen family's interests? Hu Tingyan, are you asking me to take the fall for Chu Wanyu's manslaughter charge? Yes. The voices of Hu Tingyan and the other two were heard with perfect clarity. Not a single word missed. Hu Tingyan forced Wen Yimo to take the blame. When she flatly refused, he threatened her with the fate of the Wen family, leaving her with no choice but to agree. With a stern expression, the judge handed the recording to a specialist for authentication. Yimo, in the courtroom, Hu Tingyan mouthed the words silently. directing them at Wen Yimo 17, court is adjourned, the hearing will resume in 3 days. Upon learning that verifying the authenticity of the recording would take 2 days, the judge immediately declared a recess. Wen Yimo, led by Lu Machen, left the courthouse. Hu Tingyan watched the two depart in silence, then discreetly sent someone to follow them. That night, a drone flew to Wen Yimo's residence. Wen Yimo, typing at her keyboard, glanced curiously at the drone, thinking it was a surprise from Lu Machen. She stepped outside. Looking up, Wen Yimo saw it wasn't the Lu Machen she longed for, but Hu Tingyan. Hu Tingyan had changed into casual clothes, holding a bouquet of roses. His gaze was fixed directly on Wen Yimo. On his finger, he still wore the wedding ring he shared with her. Get out. Wen Yimo couldn't even be bothered to say Hu Tingyan's name. Simply shouting a single word, out. Hu Tingyan's eyes were desolate, looking at her with a wounded expression. His lips moved slightly before he finally managed to speak. Yimo, I know I was a complete bastard to you, and I'm so sorry, but none of that was by choice. I was in an accident, and I forgot you. If I had remembered you, I would have died before I ever hurt you. With that, Hu Tingyan, holding a bouquet of roses, knelt on one knee, unconsciously revealing the wedding ring on his hand. Wen Yimo let out a cold laugh, watching Hu Tingyan quietly, waiting to hear what his next lie would be. Yimo, we grew up together for over 20 years. How could I ever bring myself to hurt you? It was all Chu Wanyu. She took advantage of my amnesia to use me against you. Yimo, please forgive me just this once. Hu Tingyan's words were so patently false that Wen Yimo couldn't help but laugh out loud. On the day you had me whipped 99 times, do you remember what you said to your brother in the study? Wen Yimo sneered as she began to speak. The study memories of the past flooded Hu Tingyan's mind, and he instantly collapsed to the floor. Yimo heard everything. She knows it all. Hu Tingyan's body trembled, all his strength draining away in an instant. After lying limp on the ground for what felt like an eternity, Hu Tingyan forced the words out. Yimo, loving one person forever is so hard. You have to allow me a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness. Hu Tingyan, falling in love is easy, but staying in love is the hard part. If you lack the courage to love steadfastly, why did you ever walk into the sacred bond of marriage with me? The world is full of temptations. The moment you make the vow to enter into marriage, you should be prepared to resist all outside allure. And the same goes for me. Wen Yimo gazed down at Hu Tingyan, who had collapsed on the floor, her eyes icy. She spoke with grave deliberation. Yimo, I won't do it again. I swear I never will. Hu Tingyan's voice was hoarse, choked with a sob as he pleaded with Wen Yimo. It's too late, Hu Tingyan, my mother's death stands between us now. All I feel for you is hatred. I want nothing more than for you and Chu Wanyu to pay with your lives. The thought of her mother, wrongfully and innocently killed, filled her with a single, burning desire to personally see Hu Tingyan and Chu Wanyu behind bars. Meeting Wen Yimo's gaze, which was as cold as the deepest winter frost, Hu Tingyan froze completely, unable to move a muscle. At the time, his only thought was to appease Chu Wanyu. He never imagined it would lead to such dire consequences. Had he known it would come to this, no matter how fascinated he was with Chu Wanyu, he would never have pursued her. He was truly remorseful. He would do anything if Yimo would just forgive him. Watching Hu Tingyan lying limp on the floor like a dead fish, a wave of disgust washed over Wen Yimo. Hu Tingyan, if you have even a shred of feeling left for me, then tell me where Chu Wanyu is. I will personally deliver Chu Wanyu to you tomorrow. At this moment, Hu Tingyan was granting Wen Yimo's every request without question. He was afraid that if he refused Wen Yimo, he would lose even the chance to see her. I'll be waiting for your good news, President Hua. After saying those final words, Wen Yimo walked straight into the room and slammed the door shut. At that moment, the drone descended, carrying Wen Yimo's favorite osmanthus cake and a handwritten apology letter from Hu Tingyan. Unfortunately, Wen Yimo no longer cared, just as she no longer cared about Hu Tingyan himself, indifferent to whatever his drone was delivering. 18. The next day, at noon, Hu Tingyan indeed sent his bodyguards to bring Chu Wanyu as promised. Chu Wanyu was covered in wounds, both large and small. Her face was haggard, as if she had aged a decade in an instant. Wen Yimo, you actually came back. The moment Chu Wanyu saw Wen Yimo, her emotions were a tangled mess. It was as if she had found her last lifeline, yet also as if she was staring at her most hated enemy standing right beside her. This is my hometown. What's wrong with me coming home? Holding a cup of coffee, Wen Yimo took a gentle sip before speaking. And no, it's not a problem. I was just wondering where you've been hiding for the past 3 years. That lunatic Hu Tingyan searched for you the entire time and came up empty. Glancing down at the wound on her own arm, Chu Wanyu's tone turned venomous. If Wen Yimo hadn't run off for 3 years, she wouldn't have had to suffer so much for nothing. what's it to you? After taking a sip of her coffee, Wen Yimo shot Chu Wanyu a mocking glance and said, seeing Wen Yimo like this sent a chill down Chu Wanyu's spine. She had a distinct feeling that Wen Yimo was different now, exuding an aura that was downright chilling. Setting the coffee cup down on the table, Wen Yimo walked up to Chu Wanyu and slapped her across the face with all her might. A sudden, sharp slap across the face left Chu Wanyu utterly stunned, staring at Wen Yimo in bewildered confusion. Wiping his hand, Wen Yimo struck Chu Wanyu across the face once more. Chu Wanyu stared at Wen Yimo in terror. Don't be afraid, you owe me a debt, Chu Wanyu, and I haven't even collected the interest yet. Wen Yimo gripped Chu Wanyu's chin, hissing like a malevolent specter. Slap, slap, slap. Then, the sound of countless slaps echoed through the room. It only stopped when Wen Yimo grew too exhausted to continue. Her face flushed red. Chu Wanyu stammered, her words slurred and barely intelligible. The one who truly hurt you, Wen Yimo, is Hu Tingyan. Without his backing, how could a commoner like me ever drag the lofty Miss Wen down from her pedestal? Hu Tingyan is next. After Chu Wanyu finished speaking, Wen Yimo's assistant handed her an agreement for the Wen family's relisting on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Wen Yimo signed the document swiftly, then kicked Chu Wanyu. Crying out in pain, Chu Wanyu collapsed to the floor, clutching her swollen belly. Wen Yimo watched her disheveled state with a cold gaze, slowly walking up to her before whispering, I've already found the hitman you hired. Wen Yimo turned and left with an air of cool detachment. Impossible, Wen Yimo, there's no way you could have found him. In the living room, Chu Wanyu shrieked like a madwoman. Impossible, no one will ever find out about this, Chu Wanyu kept muttering to herself. 19 In the days leading up to the trial, Wen Yimo would receive small gifts. These were all her favorite gifts from before. Without a second thought, Wen Yimo donated all these gifts to the orphanage in the whole of Shanghai. Aside from Hu Tingyan, no one else would be so idle as to send her gifts. Watching gift after gift that she had donated to the orphanage, Wen Yimo thought Hu Tingyan must have a few screws loose. He never appreciates what he has, but he sure does cherish the one who's not by his side. Most people call this kind of behavior pathetic. I'll go to court with you today, Yimo. I'm afraid Hu Tingyan might go crazy. Dressed neatly, Lu Machan planted a kiss on Wen Yimo's forehead and said softly. Wen Yimo squinted at Lu Machan and gave a faint smile. If he didn't see you, Hu Tingyan might not lose his mind, but if he sees you, he'll definitely go crazy. But what does Hu Tingyan's madness have to do with her? Wen Yimo, if he wants to lose his mind, let him. Holding Lu Machan's hand, Wen Yimo took the document folder and drove with him to the courthouse. At the courthouse, Wen Yimo saw Hu Tingyan once again. Compared to 3 days ago, he looked much more haggard. Yimo, I know I've wronged you in the past. I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I hope you can forgive me. The moment Wen Yimo appeared, Hu Tingyan spoke in a hoarse, utterly abject voice. Unless my mother can come back to life, I will never forgive you in this lifetime. Wen Yimo stared coldly at Hu Tingyan. If she forgave Hu Tingyan, she would be betraying her deceased mother. Yimo, Hu Tingyan spoke again, his tone even more abject than before. President Hua, you'd better think about how many years the judge is going to sentence you to first. When Yimo cut off what Hu Tingyan was about to say next, it was just the usual apologies, begging for her forgiveness and that sort of thing. Even if Hu Tingyan wasn't tired of saying it, Wen Yimo was already sick of hearing it. Holding Lu Machan's hand, Wen Yimo walked straight into the courtroom. Standing rigidly, Hu Tingyan watched Wen Yimo and Lu Machan's happiness like a pathetic clown peering at someone else's joy. Let's go in, Mr. Hua. The lawyer, a seasoned veteran, said calmly. From Hu Tingyan's demeanor, he had already guessed they were bound to lose the case today. As soon as the trial began and the judge declared the recording submitted by Wen Yimo to be authentic, Hu Tingyan immediately pleaded guilty. The members of the jury looked at Hu Tingyan in astonishment, but there was nothing they could say. His guilty plea was now a matter of record. After a half-hour recess, the judge sentenced Hu Tingyan to 5 years in prison. Hu Tingyan did not file an appeal as Hu Tingyan was declared guilty. Xian Wenshur announced its reopening in Shanghai. Many industry leaders came to show their support. Hu Tingyan was taken away directly by court officials, without even a moment to say a word to Wen Yimo. Over the next 3 months, the new Wen Group, with its precise positioning, poached many of the Hua Group's key clients. Compounded by the nationwide scandal surrounding the Hua Group's leader, the company lost the support of the general public. Its stock price plummeted continuously, leaving the entire enterprise teetering on the brink. Many board members decided to proceed with bankruptcy restructuring, and in the process, sever ties with Hu Tingyan. Chu Wanyu, how have you been lately? After dealing with the Hua family affairs, Wen Yimo arrived at a small apartment and inquired of an even more haggard-looking Chu Wanyu. 20. Wen Yimo, seeing Wen Yimo again, Chuanyu was as terrified as a mouse cornered by a cat. She thought she had already escaped. How could Wen Yimo have found her? She had even used a fake ID to board the train and leave. You seem surprised to see me. Wen Yimo flashed a wicked smile at Chuanyu. Chuanyu looked as if she'd seen a ghost in broad daylight and tried to dash into the kitchen to hide. But she didn't make it. Wen Yimo, I clearly escaped. How could you possibly have found me? Chuanyu broke down in tears. She didn't want to die. She really didn't want to die. She was so young, let you taste a moment of relief, only to plunge you into despair. That's the most agonizing way. When Yimo grabbed Chuanyu by the hair, holding her still as she spoke. Over the past 3 years, driven by the need to avenge her mother, Wen Yimo didn't just master computer technology, she also trained in Sanda and Muay Thai, all to make Chuanyu and Hua Tingyan pay the price they deserved. Wincing in pain, Chuanyu looked at Wen Yimo, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded, Wen Yimo, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please, let me go. Okay, I don't want to die. As she spoke, Chuanyu dropped to her knees before Wen Yimo with a thud. She's only 27, with her whole life ahead of her. She absolutely cannot die in prison. Spare you. Did you ever think of sparing me when you hired someone to kill me? Chuanyu, go to hell and atone to my mother. Watching Chuanyu kneeling on the ground, begging and pleading, Wen Yimo felt no pity. If she spared her, who would spare her own mother? Wen Yimo called for 2 bodyguards to take Chuanyu back to Shanghai. Chuanyu struggled desperately, but it was all in vain. Unlike Hua Tingyan, who had a professional legal team advising him, Chuanyu's case was much more straightforward to adjudicate. For inciting your parents to carry out violent evictions and hiring assassins, resulting in loss of life, this court sentences Chuanyu to death. The sentence is to be carried out in 1 week. As Chuanyu's sentencing concluded, Wen Yimo, utterly exhausted, leaned into Lu Machen's arms. Lu Machen swept Wen Yimo up in a bridal carry and strode out of the courthouse. Yimo, you can finally get some proper rest. In the speeding Maybach, Lu Machen whispered gently into Wen Yimo's ear. Lulled by the deep, soothing sound of his voice, Wen Yimo sank into a deep sleep. On the day Chuanyu was executed, Hua Tingyan desperately insisted on seeing Wen Yimo one last time. Wen Yimo had no choice but to visit Hua Tingyan in prison. When Hua Tingyan emerged, he looked utterly haggard. His hair was shorn to a buzz cut, and he wore a prison uniform. Gone was the overbearing aura of the Hua family's head. He looked like a pitiful, abandoned soul. Yimo, Chuanyu is dead. Hua Tingyan's voice had aged considerably. Wen Yimo could tell just by listening that he had suffered a great deal in prison. She felt not a shred of pity for him. He had it coming. Yes, she truly deserved to die. It was she who had personally delivered Chuanyu to the court, and she who had heard the judge pronounce the death sentence with her own ears. She was well aware that Chuanyu was already dead. Yimo, if I had never met Chuanyu back then, and had stayed true to myself, would we have stayed together all this time? Hua Tingyan's aged voice reached Wen Yimo's ears. After a moment of contemplation, Wen Yimo spoke slowly. From the moment I chose to marry you, I never once thought of abandoning you. What a shame you gave up on me. Hua Tingyan put down the phone, a single, traitorous tear rolling down his cheek. Then, he picked up the phone again, his voice choked with tears, and said, I understand. If there's a next life, I will never let you down. Wen Yimo looked at Hua Tingyan coldly and spoke with a sense of relief. If there's a next life, I hope I never meet you again. Hua Tingyan hung up the phone, his eyes rimmed red as tears streamed down his face. Wen Yimo didn't want to see Hua Tingyan's pitiful, whimpering state. She turned and left, having said all she needed to say. From that day forward, she would have nothing more to do with Xia Tingyan. That evening, fireworks lit up the sky outside the villa where Wen Yimo lived. Amidst the crackling fireworks, Lu Machen entered Wen Yimo's room, took her hand, and led her out into the garden. The garden path was lined with all manner of flowers. Hand in hand, Lu Machen guided Wen Yimo step by step toward the proposal scene he had prepared. Yimo, marry me. I promise to cherish you for the rest of my life. Lu Machen knelt on one knee and produced a blue diamond ring. Machen, Wen Yimo hesitated, her words faltering. This is a prenuptial agreement. If we ever divorce, all of my assets will be yours. I'll leave with nothing. That's not it. Wen Yimo's expression grew even more conflicted. This is a signed divorce agreement. If you ever don't want to be with me anymore, you can leave immediately. Lu Machen proposed to Wen Yimo with utmost sincerity, but Wen Yimo was still torn. Yimo, I want to marry you to be with you for a lifetime. If I fail to make you love me for the rest of our lives, then leaving with nothing is what I deserve. Lu Machen was still holding up the blue diamond ring, proposing to Wen Yimo. Wen Yimo finally made up her mind to accept Lu Machen's proposal. Let's cross that Bridge when we come to it, she was no longer the timid Wen Yimo of the past, the entire Wen family empire was now hers. She could live a perfectly good life on her own. Without Lu Machin, the point of life isn't to stay single forever, but to have the strength to walk away from a toxic man. As long as you are independent enough, you can live well without anyone. A month later, Hu Tingyan sat by the prison television and watched the live broadcast of Wen Yimo and Lu Machin's wedding. Wen Yimo put on the pure white wedding dress once more. And she was stunning, just as beautiful as the day she married him. The bride and groom may now exchange rings. After watching Wen Yimo and Lu Machin exchange rings, Hu Tingyan offered a bitter smile, then took out a pair of scissors and stabbed himself in the chest. Crimson blood flowed from Hu Tingyan's chest. In his fading vision, he seemed to see the 20-year-old Wen Yimo waving to him. Yimo, you must be happy in this life. In the next, you surely won't meet a scumbag like me. Help. Someone's killed themselves. The prison descended into chaos, with those around Hu Tingyan shouting incessantly that someone had committed suicide that night. While Wen Yimo was taking stock of the wedding gifts, she saw the sapphire set Hu Tingyan had once promised her. Taking out the sapphire set, Wen Yimo furrowed her brow. What's wrong, my dear? Seeing Wen Yimo's furrowed brow, Lu Machin couldn't help but ask. I received a gift that shouldn't exist. Wen Yimo handed the sapphire set to Lu Machin. Lu Machin examined it carefully, and a thought suddenly occurred to him. Darling, since Hu Tingyan gave it to us, returning it is out of the question, but we can put it to good use. Wen Yimo nodded in agreement with Lu Machin's suggestion. The next day, Wen Yimo secretly brought Lu Machin to the orphanage gate and donated the sapphire set to the institution. Darling, since you love children so much, why don't we have one of our own? Lu Machin teased Wen Yimo. That depends on your performance, Wen Yimo said to Lu Machin with its tsundere attitude. Was it about tonight's performance? Lu Machin said calmly. Wen Yimo fled with a flushed face. She never imagined that Lu Machin, who always seemed so proper, could be so mischievous after marriage. Darling, don't leave. If you go, I'll have no wife. Lu Machin hurriedly chased after Wen Yimo. Wen Yimo ran even faster. Unfortunately, she was finally caught by Lu Machin. Haha, got you. Now you have to have a baby with me. The end.